Aita for denying my ex's son after he abandoned us and I took the choice alone to give him up for adoption. I, 32F, had a baby boy when I was 16. Yes, I know how that sounds like. No, we weren't careful. Judge me all you want on that front, I've dealt with that for years. Mike, 33M, was my boyfriend then, and when I found out about my pregnancy, he did a disappearing act with help from his family. Something future college star something. My parents were always blunt, what happened next was my choice. After a lot of thinking, and deciding abortion just wasn't for me, I respect that right, I'm not here to debate it. It was just not for me, I chose to give up the baby for adoption. My parents knew a super sweet couple that were looking to adopt. We met and I just knew they were the right people. This turned from a teen mistake to an almost surrogacy. I started homeschool to finish my education and to have rest. The adoptive parents were with me for everything and even paid for most of the medical cost. The adoptive mother was a teacher, so she helped me with my schoolwork and to prepare for college. They were present for the birth and I refused to hold the baby. Instead, his actual mother did. And it was just right. I've stayed in the baby's life in a distant position as a special aunt. Well, he's no longer a baby and he knows who I am, but his mom is the same woman that raised him and I continue to be his special aunt. The only change is now he knows who to call if he needs a kidney. His sense of humor is like mine, go figure. We talk maybe once in a blue moon, which in all honesty is the best. He's happy and I don't regret giving him up to have a happy life. For my part, I married 6 years ago. My husband, Aaron, 44M, was divorced in good terms with Bella, 40F. They have 2 children together. A boy that is 16 and a girl that is 19. Aaron made it clear since we began dating that his kids' approval was important and that Bella was part of his life forever, not as a spouse but as a friend and mother to his children. I also told Bella and him about my teen pregnancy. Well, to begin with the kids, my stepdaughter and I get along well. She's obviously closer to her mother, but she still does girls' days with me every so often. It's more like friends though. My stepson is incredibly close to me. He calls me his other mom and always asks me to be present for important events. We bonded when his childhood dog passed away, as my cat died about the same time. Bella and we're best friends. I know people have complicated relationships with their partner's exes, but we always show respect to each other. I never tried to take her place. I know Aaron and her shared something special long before I was in the picture. That's their history. And I am a stepmom, not a mom. Her place in the kid's life is not up for competition. The reason for this background is that the whole mess with Mike started when I took my stepson to a medical appointment. It wasn't serious, though he did have to use anesthesia. Aaron and Bella both couldn't get the day off. They tried, but their jobs are on call and they cannot easily take time off. So I went on my own to be my stepson's support. I didn't recognize Mike as one of the doctors. His real name, both first and last name, are incredibly common and it had been years. Not to mention my priority was being my stepson's support and everything else was secondary. After my stepson was done, he was a bit out of it as expected. I was setting him up in the car and making sure he was comfortable when Mike came over. He told me he had been thinking about me and our son for so long, and he was glad our boy was okay. It really took me a few minutes for my brain to click on what was going on and he kept on rambling about apologies and how he wasn't ready to be a father. Blah blah blah. Eventually I just sighed and loudly said, "This is not the baby I was pregnant with. I gave him up for adoption after I gave birth. I am a stepmother." My loopy stepson chimed in with, "Other mom." I had to hold back a smirk to be honest. Mike was stunned by that and it gave me time to catch him up on the important details. I gave up the baby, he knows what happened and why I gave him up. I married a man with 2 children, I am happy and don't want him in my life. And no, I won't give him contact information for the adoptive family. He is 16 years too late. That was the end of it and I got into my car to get my stepson home to rest. Since then Mike found me in social media and has been painting this sob story about me denying him a chance to be a father. How I was a poor mother that threw away her child to raise someone else's children. I'm basically the she-devil apparently. Most of our former classmates that saw the post reminded him that he left me. Some of his HS friends even pointed out he laughed about leaving me pregnant. I didn't know that part. A few of his relatives have reached out to bash me about taking Mike's chance to be a father. That it made me a poor Christian. I'm not. I'm Jewish to begin with. A few friends did tell me it was a b*tch move to give the baby up without telling Mike. I don't personally think I was in the wrong, but in case I decided to leave the judgment to the internet masses. So, Reddit, Aita, clearing something out, the adoptive parents and bio child have a phone number to contact Mike's parents if they want. I have no say if they do or not. I just won't give Mike any information on them. Sum of comments. Commenter, NTA reply, "Hi, therapist here. Seems like it was the right decision for everyone involved. Especially Mike, who clearly shouldn't be anywhere near children given his full lack of impulse control and empathy." As a fellow Jewish lady, I recommend laughing at the poor Christian comments. Reply, "My mom loves them. I'm in a mixed household with dad being Jewish and mom being Catholic. My mom laughs every time I get a new one the hardest." Commenter, I mean, they can be really funny depending on who's saying it. Also, who are these friends calling you a bitch? They don't sound like friends. Reply, they are more conservative friends. I say friend loosely. We're in the same groups. Commenter, these people are fucking psycho. Block. Your bio kid might decide for himself to try and find his bio dad one day, but it's your job to defend his privacy until then. And make sure his decision is informed, i.e. he knows that his bio dad is a complete ass. Reply, I told him everything when his parents decided it was time to tell him who I was really. I didn't make Mike into a villain, just said he left after I told him I was pregnant and never reached out. He's been clear that while I am his biological mother and Mike is his biological father, he doesn't see either of us as parents. I am his aunt and Mike is a stranger. Commenter, TF. Also, I'm not judging you for the age gap, but I'm definitely judging Mike. Tell him if he and his friends don't leave you alone that you'll report him to the medical board. Also, maybe ask your son if he wants Mike's contact info, but warn the parents he's bad news. It's your birth son's choice, not yours. Editor's note, this commenter thought Mike was 33 when OOP was 16. He was 17 and OOP clarified that later. Reply, he's had Mike's info for years. Mainly via Mike's parents. I think he called them once and Mike wasn't around or something. I got the story secondhand so I don't know the details. Funny comment about anesthesia. Apparently I sang opera really badly when my wisdom teeth were removed. My stepson and I had a debate about why our dog should go to school in his place. Commenter, consult a lawyer about him talking shit about you online. Medical board. Reply, in consideration. It hasn't damaged my character per se considering he's being called out publicly. But him approaching at the hospital was weird. We're right now way too busy with another surgery on the schedule so legal stuff is in the back burner. And we are going to a different hospital. Commenter, warn the adoptive parents about the situation, they have a right to know and can protect the child. Reply, already done. They do live in another state so that gives them some space. Commenter, one thing, knowing nothing about how this works, I assume you were able to get Mike's parental rights terminated given that he left. If not, I wonder if it makes sense to give the adoptive family a heads up that he's coming out of the woodwork. Reply, this was a tough situation because he wasn't around and no one in his family willingly gave a DNA sample to establish parenthood. The judge that did the adoption could have demanded it, but she decided for the good of the baby and myself to just terminate both of our rights. And then the baby was adopted. I was basically deemed unfit and the father was not able to be contacted. And the court did try really hard to get him. To another commenter, it wasn't done with his consent. He was MIA. When the adoption process began, we tried to reach out and his family didn't even hold a conversation. The judge involved tried to have the courts contact him and he didn't respond either. Eventually the abandonment time frame was hit and his rights were terminated for abandonment. Mine were willingly terminated since I presented myself as an unfit mother. One more commenter, this was a pain to do. It mainly fell down on abandonment. We had to prove we tried to contact the father. The court had to try to contact the father. And we had to wait for a set time requirement. I just had the right judge that understood I wasn't prepared to be a mother and decided to set things appropriately. Their relationship, oh, I don't mind it at all. I wanted him to never see me as his mom. I wanted him to love his family. I'm happy beyond reasons that his life is great because I am not in it beyond a call here and there. He's an amazing young man and it's because he has amazing parents. I do get moments of pain here and there, and then I remember this kid had the best possible life. I wasn't good for him. And he wasn't good for me. It's a sad reality. I don't regret it and I'm glad I was able to bring him for his parents to have him in their lives. Mike was one of the doctors for your stepson's surgery. He wasn't one of our doctors. Just a doctor in the hospital. I spent like 2 hours in the waiting room so I suspect he recognized me. His name was in a plaque with all the doctors' names and I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. I should have, I was just stressed and not really thinking. Commenter, I'm sorry I reread this 3 times looking for the part where you said you and your family moved away and changed all your identities. Nope. I don't see that anywhere. So, this college star and his scumbag family knew exactly where you were and how to find you for the last 16 fucking years, and yet you're the monster who denied him a chance to get to know his son and be the dad he was destined to be. Oh, that's just fucking rich. What a bunch of complete as swipes. Don't let him or his douchebag family anywhere near your son or his adoptive parents. Reply, I didn't even go out of state for college. Went to the local university in town. And this isn't a massive city either. Update post, February 5th, 2025, 17 days later. This is probably the one and only update I'll be doing. Because to be honest, I got other things to do and I have my main Reddit account for lurking. I'm going to start with the important matter. A lot of people were worried about my biological kid and what he wished when it came to Mike. Well, I got his permission to post this. He spoke to Mike once a few days after I told him where he could find Mike. I won't share all the details, only the final decision. There won't be any more contact between them. The kid doesn't want a second dad and Mike wasn't willing to be in his life unless he had the position of dad. So he's going no contact with Mike. There was more to it, but it's very personal and I feel it's not my place to share it. The kid and I will continue to have a relationship as aunt and nephew. And he knows whatever he needs medically, I'll always be first in line to give blood, kidney, etc. For those wondering why Mike is so big into contact with the kid, I found out a few details via his friends. Mike can have more kids. He just hasn't had a stable relationship in years. Which I can believe since I finally had enough and decided to accept going to have coffee with him to get some things squared away. My husband came of course, but he sat in another table to let me deal with it. I asked him to. The conversation was a shit show, to be honest. Mike brought me flowers and chocolate-covered strawberries, my old favorites. He treated it all like some date. I nipped that bud immediately. I introduced my husband and told him we were very much in love and happy, so I don't appreciate any attempts at unwanted romance. Once we sat down, he started by telling me what I knew about him having failed relationships. That he felt no woman could meet his standards for a wife and mother to his children since he already saw me as that. He claims he feels guilty for choosing college over me and our baby. He was well aware of the court dates regarding custody and that I was trying to put the baby up for adoption. When he saw me taking care of my stepson, he thought I had chickened out of giving the baby away. Seeing me be all caring of our baby boy made him think how great it would be if the 3 of us could be a family, and maybe have a bigger family down the road. He had the gall to ask me if I would consider divorcing my husband and try to fight for custody of our son. I have to admit, I laughed in his face. I probably was overly cruel, but I had years of stress, heartache, and judgmental encounters to drop on him. I told him all I saw in him was a coward. A coward that instead of staying to make adult decisions decided to run with help of mommy and daddy. That any love I had for him died the day I had to push out a full human being, and instead of knowing I had support from him, there was a big empty spot where the dad was supposed to be. That I almost ruined my life and had to throw away prom, senior pictures, and even graduation, because I was far too pregnant to party, appear on the yearbook or walk into stage to get my diploma. He got to party and enjoy life while I had to fight tooth and nail for an inch of respect, yet we both had unprotected sex. The only difference is his dick wasn't big enough to pop a baby out or satisfy a woman to begin with. That was a bit mean, but not sorry. After I calmed down, I simply told him I had a happy life with a man that loves me. Great stepkids that are the greatest gift. A best friend who lets me be a stepmom to her children. A nephew who I adore and who, despite our history as biological mother and child, he still loves me as his special aunt rather than hate me. My family is perfect because he's not part of it and I have no intentions to live in his fantasy. And that I can't wait to get pregnant with my husband's child to add to that perfection. I also told him to leave our biological kid alone. He has made his choice and it is up to him if he ever reaches out for Mike. And also let him know I would be making a formal complaint to his hospital for his harassment. Good thing my husband took screenshots, because by the time we got home, Mike had deleted all the posts. A lot of his former friends did repost screenshots making fun of him. The silver line in all of this is that I have reconnected with my high school classmates, and to be honest, they are great people. Seems Mike is in a handful that stayed in his school hype mindset. It's been about 3 days and no signs of Mike. My husband did get the biggest ego boost when he overheard me going off on Mike and has been insufferable, in a good way. So, there's mostly good news. Hopefully one of these days we'll get even more good news since we actually are excited at the idea of having a baby together. Sum of comments. Commenter, regarding him asking you to divorce your husband and fight together for our son, outside of getting physical, there's practically no overreaction to that. Reply, I almost got physical to be honest. But I had my nails just done. He wasn't worth breaking a nail. Commenter, very few things are worth breaking a nail, but Han, breaking one to hurt that bastard would have been one of those things. Reply, yeah, but he's not worth the $150 bill. He wasn't even worth the $14 bill at the cafe. OOP explains, it was an anniversary gift from my stepdaughter. Normally my nails are like 40 maybe. XD. Commenter, of course he didn't pick up the check. Reply, oh we left before and I paid my part and my husband's. Don't know if he paid his. Commenter, did he at least leave those strawberries for your husband to feed to while you recline in bed? Reply, nah, we left them on the table for him with the flour. My husband bought me my current favorite. Macadamias covered in chocolate. Stories number 2. Aita for refusing to remove a tattoo related to my ex for my current partner. My 24M girlfriend 29F and I have been together 2 years. I only have one tattoo. I got it when I was 19 and it was given to me by my ex-girlfriend. The tattoo, while it's not directly about or for my ex, she was the person to tattoo it on me. It's a small, minimal tattoo. My ex and I never broke up. She died unexpectedly in an accident. I was 21. I haven't been in a serious relationship until this one I'm in now, because I've taken time to overcome the loss and all the associated trauma. To me, my tattoo holds a lot of meaning, it extends beyond the relationship I had with my ex. I've tried to explain that to my girlfriend but her thinking is black and white, if you're over her, just get it removed. Can't you do this for me? Don't you want to move on? It means you're stuck in the past. These are some of her arguments. Aita for wanting to keep my tattoo. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA, demanding someone remove a tattoo in general is a pretty crazy demand. If it's not specifically a name or very obvious symbol of her, there should be no reason for someone to even request it be removed or covered. Your current GF seems very insecure. Reply, exactly. It's not directly anything to do with her, it's just that she gave it to me. Even when I had it done by her it was a tattoo I was getting for myself. And while it did take on the added meaning of being something that exists in a world where she no longer does, and will always be connected in that way, it's not something to be competed with. I wish I'd shared the deeper backstory about my tattoo with my current girlfriend earlier. I think I took too long in establishing this side of my relationship with her, having her earn my trust before letting myself become vulnerable to a point where I could share traumatic memories with her. All for her to say remove your tattoo. SMH. Maybe I'm an idiot and I don't know how to spot them, but I genuinely saw no red flags. This is our only real issue in our relationship but unfortunately it's a huge one. Commenter 2, she didn't even mind that tat until you told her your ex did it? Yeah, she's selfish and bad news. Reply, so you're correct. She did have some concerns even before I told her my story. She worried how my tattoo would be perceived, specifically by her parents because tattoos historically have bad association in my culture, but it's not a big tattoo, it's very clean and not visible when wearing most clothes. She knew about me and my past, she knew everything. This tattoo is the least bad thing about me, but to her it's the most intolerable. Commenter 1, I'd reserve judgment on this. OP, do you talk about your former girlfriend a lot? Does your girlfriend feel like there's a ghost in the relationship? Reply, I didn't talk about her at all until recently, when I decided to open up and share the story about my tattoo and that's when the remove your tattoo stuff came out. It's not a part of my past I bring up easily or want to visit. Or talk to people about beyond what's necessary. And sometimes I wonder if I should just keep it to myself and not tell anyone at all. I thought my current girlfriend was someone I could trust so I chose to be vulnerable. Maybe I should have laid it out earlier and given her an opportunity to walk away. Yeah. I think it's on me a little for taking so long to open up, but that's something I'm working on. It's a bad personality trait I've always had, even before what happened to my late girlfriend, and her dying just made me even more guarded. What I think is unfair is that people hold unresolved feelings for ex-partners all the time, whether they have a tattoo or not. But the presence of my tattoo, even though I've put in all the work and moved on from my feelings, makes my girlfriend judge me unfairly, because it's there, she thinks it means I'm stuck in the past. But it's not true. It hurts because sharing all of this with my current girlfriend was my way of giving her all of me. Update. Thank you everyone for answering my question. I talked to my girlfriend, and even though I've explained in the past, I tried to explain again one last time, thinking maybe if we could communicate our feelings more clearly, we would get past this misunderstanding. I explained my tattoo is personally meaningful to me in a way that has nothing to do with my ex. It doesn't mean I haven't moved on or that I'm stuck in the past. We talked for a long time and I did not break up with her because of how this conversation went. I genuinely believed we overcame it. A few days passed, she drank too much while celebrating a work milestone with her colleagues. She called me that night to come to her place. She was in a good mood that night. I fell asleep first. While I was asleep, she stubbed a cigarette on my tattoo. I broke up with her because I can't take it anymore, her fixation with my tattoo. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, glad you broke up, but why did it take so long? You know, if it was a kid instead of a tattoo she would have expected you to get rid of that too. Reply, it's clear to me now. But it took me so long, because I think I was just convinced by the conversation we had. I was stupid, and also, I was finding it hard to separate my feelings. Commenter 2, yeah, good move, she's a psycho. I hope it won't scar and mess up your tattoo too bad. Reply, fortunately the burn doesn't seem to be too deep, so if I take care of it, it will probably be okay and heal by leaving a lighter mark, then I'll get a touch up. It's not a big or complicated tattoo. Commenter 2, broke up with her. Call the cops on her for assault and domestic violence. I hope you're okay. Reply, she claimed it was an accident. I have no further proof or injury. Police encouraged me to settle with her privately. Nothing came of it. Sorry. It's probably not what you wanted to hear. Stories number 3. I, 16M, got into an argument with my older brother, 26M, and told him he'll never measure up to our deceased father. I have 3 older siblings, 2 sisters who are 28, and my older brother, Chris, who is 26. I am the youngest child at 16. 3 years ago our dad died of cancer, after a pretty rough battle. Being 11 when my dad got sick, I remember it being a pretty scary time, not always understanding what was happening, but the one thing I always knew was that Chris was there for me. Obviously it was also a very difficult time for Chris, but he really looked out for me during that time. And Chris has continued to be the same, great guy and awesome big brother to this day. So, 3 weekends ago I went to a party, drank too much, and I got drunk for 3rd time in my life. I called Chris and asked him if he could come get me when I wanted to leave, and my friends, one of which was our designated driver who was sober, wanted to stay. Chris came to pick me up, worried that I was going to get in a car with a drunk driver if he didn't. The next day he lectured me on my drinking problem, and getting into cars with drunk drivers. Things got heated, because I felt like he was assuming a lot, because I'm a junior in high school and I've only drank 3 times at parties, which I feel is pretty normal, and I wasn't going to get in a car with a drunk driver. My DD was completely sober, so I feel like I was more responsible than he was giving me credit for. But yes, I was drunk enough to think calling him at 10 p.m. out of the blue to pick me up because I was tired was a good idea. And then 2 weeks ago Chris found out I quit the soccer team. He started lecturing me on commitments, and talking about how I need to be doing an extracurricular for college, and I shouldn't just quit because of laziness. And then things got heated, and he started talking about my drinking problem again, and then talking about my room being messy, and then we were really arguing and he was accusing me of being disrespectful, and then I fucked up. I lost it and told Chris he wasn't my dad and I didn't need him lecturing me, and how he thinks he could replace dad but he'll never be half the man dad was. I was mad and just looking for something mean to say. Chris left my room, and about 30 minutes later came back in and apologized for overstepping. It was clear that he had been crying, but I was still mad and couldn't bring myself to apologize even though I knew that I should and that I didn't mean what I said. Chris left and went back to his place and we didn't talk for 3 days. 3 days later I finally did the right thing and texted him a heartfelt apology for what I had done and said, thanked him for always caring enough to be there for me, and told him I spoke with the coach about rejoining the soccer team. He texted back hours later, thank you, that means a lot. Since that time we've only spoke sporadically over text, whereas we used to speak all day. I've asked him if he wants to hang out, and he's always busy or he says maybe tomorrow, and then when I text him the next day he doesn't reply until it's too late. Chris has come to every soccer game I've had over the past couple of years, but he's missed the last 2. I have apologized again by text. I would do it in person, but I haven't seen him since our fight, whereas normally I see him a couple times a week. One of our things has been going to see Marvel new releases together. I asked him if he wants to go next weekend and he said his girlfriend surprised him and took him this weekend. So I replied back, okay, maybe we can do something else together. I'd love to hang with you, I miss you. No reply yet. I know what I said was completely fucked up and wrong. Besides being a very mean thing to say, it's not true at all, he's great. I understand why he's upset, and I know it's my fault, but now I don't know how to make things better. Chris was overbearing at times, but I would give anything to go back to that right now. Is there anything more I can do to fix this? TLDR got into a fight with my older brother a couple of weeks ago because I felt like he was trying to parent me. We got into an argument and I told him that he'll never be the man our deceased father was. This hurt my brother's feelings, and things haven't been the same since. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You broke his heart. And I don't say that to make you feel guilty, I say that so you can understand that a text message apology is not remotely enough. You need to go to him, not wait for him to come over, you literally need to go to his place and apologize in person. Reply. You're absolutely right that a text apology is not enough for what I've done. I want to apologize in person because he deserves one, so should I just show up to his place uninvited, because I've thought about doing that. I asked to come over before and he didn't reply until it was already late, saying he had just got home, but next time I could. Update. Though I would provide an update to my first post. Someone advised me that I write my brother a letter apologizing, which I did. I apologized for being mean and hurtful, and that I was wrong for doing that. I also got him a separate card and wrote a message thanking him for everything he's done for me. I went to his house with my letter and card when I found out he was home to go talk to him, but unfortunately when I got there he was gone already, so I slid them under the door. When he got back home he found them and read them, and then he called me to arrange to come see me. He came over here and I apologized in person for what I said. He was very straightforward with me and honest about my actions. He explained that the reason he had been avoiding me lately is because he needed some time apart because he was beginning not to like me. He said loved me, but he didn't want to be around me sometimes. That was pretty hard to hear. He said that lately I've just been not very nice, the comment about our dad was by far the worst, but I make other snappy comments. He had tried to brush it off as me being just as teenager, but had now decided it was best to let me know. Being a teenager is not an excuse to be a constant asshole to everybody at home, is how he put it. He gave a few examples and looking back he was absolutely right. It was pretty upsetting to hear. I know he wasn't saying it to upset me, and I was thankful that he was telling me, or at least I'm thankful now. I promised that I would check my attitude, he said a little more thoughtfulness was all I needed, and that even though sometimes I act like an asshole he knows I'm not one. After we finished talking we hugged, he told me not to forget that he loves me and that I'm great. Since then I've been trying to be more considerate. I really am trying to follow the advice he gave me. It's been a couple months now, and I'm happy to say that it's working. Our mom told me a couple weeks ago that I'm a joy to be around. In the car earlier today my brother told me that it's been really nice spending time with me lately, so that's good news. TLDR apologized to my brother for the terrible thing I said to him. He warned me that I was turning into someone that he didn't want to be around, even though he loved me. I've worked on fixing my attitude over the past 2 months, and today my brother told me it's nice to hang out with me these days. Edit. Wow, wasn't expecting this to get big. Thanks for the advice, and for the gold. Much appreciated. Stories number 4. Aita for telling my brother's new wife he's just using her to care for his child with Down syndrome. Hi Reddit. I have a bad relationship with my brother so I'm wondering if that's staining things. My brother is gross, in terms of both looks and personality. I really don't like him. He could never get a girlfriend for pretty much his whole life, until he paid a stripper to take his virginity at the ripe old age of 25. He got her pregnant, and the baby was born with both Down syndrome and fetal alcohol issues. A paternity test was done, and yes, my brother is the father. She took off into the wind, leaving my brother as a single dad to this child. He already had no dating prospects, and that made things even worse. He has kind of hated women his entire adult life. He thinks life's not fair, he deserves love, women need to give him a chance, women just want hot rich guys. Blah blah blah, entitled shit. I'm not sure why our parents don't correct him, and they shut me down when I try to. Anyways, he recently decided to save up so he could go to the Philippines to find a wife. Because American women don't have family values. The reality is he tried with American women, but getting a woman in poverty is his only shot. He 31M met an 18-year-old girl from a very poor family. He married her quickly, and convinced her that he would be the best husband in the world. He didn't elaborate on his son's issues. She was shocked when she was brought back to his shitty apartment, and medically needy child. I met her for the first time and took her out shopping and she actually seemed like a very nice girl. She is clearly in way over her head. I could tell she was holding back what she wanted to say, because he's my brother, but I flat out told her staying with him for a green card is not worth it. He will treat her like shit, and he only wanted her because she's young and desperate. He hates his kid and wants a woman to take care of him, and he's also just a desperate loser. She cried, and asked to stay with me, which I agreed to. I feel bad for her, and I want to help her as best as I can. Not sure what we can do to keep her in the country. I'm a straight woman but I'd marry her if I could, realistically, Aita. My brother and parents are mad at me. My parents reluctantly, and my brother is absolutely furious. Stories number 5. Aita for blaming my nephew for using my credit card without my permission. So let me start off with I'm pretty bad at checking the details on my bank statements, but recently something wasn't right. So I went through every single one for the past year, and there were over 100 charges from PlayStation. I only had 4 purchases on my 2 PS accounts in a single year, so I panicked as someone had my CC info. In all, the total charges were around 1,500. I contacted both of my siblings whose kids also have accounts and asked nicely if their kids may have purchased anything using my bank account before I make a dispute. Both said no, so I went ahead and called both PS and my bank. The bank was able to charge back past few months and rest is under investigation. Well, a few days later I get a frantic call from my teenage nephew who says his PS account was perma-banned. I asked him if he was sure he didn't buy anything with a CC after I gave him a several $100 PS gift card for his birthday this summer to spend on stuff. He again denied. So I have his email logins and sure enough, it was purchases he made to his account. All the stuff he plays. Then he starts to say maybe he bought a few items here and there. Now my sister is pissed at me. She says I must have added my CC info to buy him something at some point in time, and it was all my fault he was making purchases from my card. If it were her CC, she'd get an alert. Never that he may have taken my CC info, no. She doesn't want him to lose his account, and said she'll call PS to pay for it all. She said he always asks and she gets alerts and doesn't understand that I didn't, so I shouldn't blame him. I said well he knew he was spending someone else's money, so why is it my fault? And that he stopped asking her for permission to make purchases because no one stopped him. After that she said I was blaming her kid for everything. So Aita here. Edit. Info, he is almost 15. I'm unsure of how he got my payment info. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, you are NTA and I am really worried for your nephew. His mother is completely incompetent and she seems determined to send her boy out into the world without even the most basic ethics and standards. You are not going to change her. She just doesn't have the intelligence and morals to make reasonable choices or to treat people with the most basic respect. I would not interact with her. Reply, and this is certainly not the first time he's been in deep trouble. I was very shocked with how she reacted as she is usually not like this. Commenter, NTA, nephew shouldn't have been making purchases with CC that wasn't his. It was financially risky to use your CC one time without making sure that the data was not saved, but that doesn't make you the AH. When you asked if they made purchases, that was the time for him to fess up. He didn't and these are the consequences. Support article says that the ban for debt should be lifted once they pay off the balance. I don't know if a chargeback is different but this support article might be helpful. Reply, Ty. I honestly don't remember if I put my CC info in there at some point in time. But someone his age would be able to recognize they are using unaccounted for funds. And Ty for the info. I'm willing to work with my sister if she changes her tone. We're typically very civil. OOP replies to top comment. I already canceled that card and will make sure to add alerts warning. I don't have many credit cards, but I will be sure to on those as well. Ty, commenter, I think she, OOP, used it, credit card, to buy something for him on PS site and it was saved on there. Reply, and that I'm not even sure of. The account's been there for years. It's possible he punched it in himself. But I typically buy gift card for that stuff. Commenter, did you buy the gift cards through the PS store? Reply, no, I got a PS gift card from Amazon. He claims he only made purchases with those funds. Commenter, NTA, but you're an idiot for not keeping track of your finances. Over hundreds of transactions for 1,500 and you never noticed. Crazy. Reply, after the tally, most of the purchases were in past 2 months. Last month was the holidays, so figured I spent a bit much. Before was approximate 100 a month, which can easy go under anyone's radar. To another commenter, it started off very slow last February. The last 2 months were heavy. I didn't flinch after the holidays because I was spending lots of money. After going through January bills is when I knew something was very off. But yes, they started to become more frequent after a while. Commenter, why do you have his email logins exactly? Make it a better reason than ChatGPT could come up with. Reply, I helped set it up. I must be an asshole. Commenter, creating a PSN account requires an email address to register. If OP created Nephew's PSN account and Nephew didn't already have an email address of his own, OP may have also created an email account for Nephew. I did this for my nephews when I gave them my PS4 a few years ago. My nephews don't even know about the email accounts yet. Reply, yes, this is what happened. My sister is terrible with technology and I helped him set up the account. Update. After an intense argument, she was still denying he made the charges at all. I was finally able to show her each and every transaction, before I had only explained and she didn't believe me. After seeing the evidence, he finally fessed up. He claimed he thought it was her card. Zany face. She will be paying me for all the money he used on my account and will not be getting the PS5 back, until he works to pay it off. Even then she may not let him have it. He insists that he will be paying us both double for our troubles. But the real damage done here is the trust one have in both of them. Stories number 6. Aita for blowing up at my sick husband when he asked for help with our toddler. I plan on sending this post to my husband once the verdict is in, whichever way it goes, so I'll add as much of his perspective as I can. Our toddler was sick through the weekend. I was up with him one night from 12:15 to 2:45, and off and on the next night. I probably got 10 to 12 hours of broken sleep the whole weekend. Yesterday, my husband mentioned he was starting to feel a little sick. Last night I went to bed early hoping to catch up on rest. All throughout the night, my husband woke me up way more often than my toddler ever does, even on a bad night. Some of the times were not directly his fault, but other times I felt like he was being inconsiderate. 1. He snored loudly in my ear. 2. He asked for another blanket because he had the chills. I told him it was at the foot of the bed. He asked for help and reminded me that he helps me when I'm sick, and that he'd still do the morning routine with our son. 3. He had a nightmare I had to shake him awake from. Normal. 4. He whispered at Alexa to ask for the time. 5. He asked for another blanket. I gave him mine. 6. He made a phone call, in bed, and left a full volume voicemail to his work to let them know he'd need to take a sick day. 7. At 5:30 in the morning, he woke me to ask if I could do the wake-up routine with our son. I do bedtime, he does wake up. At this point I blew up. I expressed how mad I was that he woke me up all night long, and now I have to wake up early to do what he said he'd still do, and I don't get to stay home and catch up on sleep. He said I was in the wrong because marriage is in sickness and in health. I immediately got up to get ready. He said I didn't have to start getting ready so early. I said yes I did because I start work at 7:30. I barely make it to work on time when I wake up at 6 o'clock, and now I have to unexpectedly skip my shower, get my toddler ready, get his food ready for the day, feed him breakfast, drop him off at daycare, then take myself to work. I said he was a grown man with a cold, and he robbed me of the rest I needed, and that I'll be sleeping on the couch tonight. At that point I asked for space and we haven't talked since. I was late for work, which is a big deal at my job. I might be the asshole for blowing up at my husband when he asked for support during an unexpected illness. Am I the asshole for being mad at my sick husband? Update, Aita for blowing up at my sick husband when he asked for help with our toddler. He's sick. Be nice. I agree, and I also felt unwell. I was never mad at him for being sick. I was mad about the wake-ups and the last-minute change in plans that could have been avoided with better communication. Grace and empathy should go both ways. Wait until it's your turn to be sick. We have been together 10+ years and we each have the same standard of self-sufficiency, but we generally help each other when sick, soup, tea, meds, the works, within reason. Extra TLC is appreciated, but we're not children. Never have I ever woken him up repeatedly throughout the night. This was an unusual situation that was exacerbated by my sleep debt and his sudden symptoms. Why didn't he help you over the weekend? He did help a lot during the daytime on the weekend to give me rest breaks because I did the overnight wake-ups, but that does not include naps. I find it extremely difficult to take naps and he knows it. My mind just doesn't turn off until bedtime. He generally can't help with the overnights because of a legitimate medical condition that could worsen with repeated lack of sleep. Husband does all the wake-ups and lets me sleep in on the weekends to make up for the overnights. Why didn't you sleep in the guest room? We don't have one anymore. Why didn't you take the couch if he was sick? Symptoms didn't hit hard until after we went to sleep, which is why we didn't initially sleep separately or change the morning arrangements the night before. Why didn't you take the couch after the first few wake-ups? I'm used to a few wake-ups. I wasn't expecting the next 5. Once I'm physically up, I'm mentally up. If I had gotten up from the bed, it would have been difficult to go back to sleep at that point. Does he have sleep apnea? I have suggested to him in the past that he does and should do a sleep study. He hasn't yet and I'm not going to make an appointment for him. Snoring and nightmares aren't his fault. I already said they weren't. The nightmares are regular for him, we sleep separately often because of them, per my request. We'll go months sleeping apart, but then he'll say that he doesn't sleep well alone, and since we only have the couch as a separate sleep space, I often cave and let him sleep with me again. He doesn't let me take the couch. Why did you take a sick child to daycare? Daycare's policy is 24 hours fever-free without other symptoms or medication. I could never be married to you. You're so selfish. I wasn't taking applications, but can you feel that sexual tension between us, or is that just me? Update: husband saw the comments and guaranteed me uninterrupted sleep going forward. I again offered to sleep on the couch, but he insisted he take it and the baby monitor. As a compromise, we'll be sleeping separately on weeknights, and together on weekends, unless I need to catch up on sleep or if one of us is sick. After seeing all perspectives, including husbands, I'll agree with an ESH verdict with me being 20% the asshole. I had a right to be mad, but I should not have blown up. He should be able to ask for help, but within reason. I apologized for being snappy. He apologized for the wake-ups. No divorce lawyers necessary. Stories number 7. My depressed partner, 27F, and the effect it has had on my 26M life. What should I do? I have been with my partner for about 6 years. In those 6 years we have built a life together, we both have career jobs, bought a house, a dog. When I met my partner she had a child whose father left early on. I have become the father for her and we have become a solid family unit. About 2 years ago, whilst my partner was working a job that required her to work night shifts, she began to suffer with fatigue. Her moods changed so she sought help and was diagnosed with depression. She immediately sought counseling and medication for it. She attributed it to her work and swiftly left the job, and luckily landed an incredible job that she really loves. She has taken the role and run with it, she is passionate about it and I'm so proud of her achievements in that job. However, her mood at home remains the same. It has been really difficult to support her and keep going for her. I know she will pull out of it at some point, but whenever she seems to be getting better, she spirals back down again, eating tons of chocolate and not showering for days on end. The real problem for me is how I often feel like I'm a thorn in her side. Like I am a real annoyance for her. I check up on her often, I try to keep her mind ticking over so she doesn't dwell on dark thoughts, and I try to talk to her about things we can do together as a family. Holidays, moving house, new cars, etc. The kind of stuff people decide together. I try and start a conversation about going camping in the summer and the response is always, yeah, can do I suppose, with absolutely 0% enthusiasm. I'm the kind of person that needs something good to look forward to, and the little one definitely deserves something to look forward to, because she is the most amazing little girl. Our house is perpetually messy. I try and get her to do some tidying and cleaning, but largely it falls to me every day to keep things tidy. My partner's depression keeps her from daily hygiene. I have to make sure she showers and keeps herself clean, wears clean clothes, etc., which means nagging, repeated reminders, etc. Our sex life is non-existent, which I find particularly difficult as I do have a high sex drive and I often find my mind going off on sexual tangents every day, which affects my concentration at work. This is also trashing my self-esteem. It is hard not to think that I'm just not sexually appealing to her anymore. Most of the time, when talking to my partner I feel like a hindrance to her. Like I'm nagging or being a total pain for her. I'm not getting out what I'm putting in, there's no excitement, no affection, and I'm worried about the effect of this on our little one. We don't argue often per se, but we aren't particularly outwardly affectionate. I love my partner. I really do. But I don't know what to do. It is getting harder and harder and I feel lonely, unappreciated and tired. I feel like she genuinely prefers being at work than being at home with her family. Should I continue to dig in and support, or is there something I should do differently? Leaving would be particularly difficult. I love the life we have achieved, I love my stepdaughter. But we currently aren't behaving as a couple. Just housemates with a lot of responsibility. TLDR, my partner has been dealing with depression for 2 years, and it is taking its toll on me and my needs. I am worried for my stepdaughter. What should I do? Comments. Is she still taking medication and going to counseling? Reply. She is still taking meds and counseling sessions every few weeks. Another comment. Talking from being on the other side of this, as a GF who is struggling with depression, honestly it is going to be rough on UL, but I would guess that she really appreciates you helping her. Counseling and medication will help, but it won't be an instant fix. For me, it evens out my mood more so my low moments aren't as big. Depression is rough. It's mood swings, feeling empty, feeling worthless and worse. And the feelings can pop up at any point which makes it so hard to deal with. She will get over it, but it might take a long time. The best thing you can do is just continue to support her and be patient. You clearly love her, and still want to be with her, but it will just be a waiting game. Try talking to your partner about it. Because it sounds like there's still stuff weighing on her if there's been no improvement. Like even though I got out of a shit work situation, I was still overworked, which was triggering my depression. Another comment from OOP, there are good times BTW. We do laugh and we do sometimes do family things, but it takes a lot of effort to work her up to it and keep her going throughout activities. Most of the time, it's just me and the little one doing family activities together. Link, an update on a post from 7 months ago about my partner's, F27, depression and its impact on my, M27, life. 7 months ago I posted about my girlfriend, her struggles with depression and how it was impacting my life and my personal needs. I got some really helpful and empathetic replies which I was really thankful for. I wanted to write a bit of an update, partly for those who helped but also to show that it can sometimes get better. A couple of months back my partner was due to get her contraceptive coil removed. She struggled with irregular periods whilst on the coil, so she decided that she didn't want a replacement and wanted to get back to a normal cycle. Honestly, her mood changed almost immediately. It was so quick. As soon as it was out, she started feeling better. Her want to do fun stuff has returned, and the sex drive is slowly increasing. We have already had way more sex in 2019 than we did in the whole of last year. She is now off meds, and even though we are going through stressful times, moving house man never again, her moods recover to a norm far quicker. We do more family stuff now. I'm typing this from a camping holiday together, and my stepdaughter is doing well at home and at school, bringing home a brilliant report for the end of the school year. I don't want this post to come across as bragging. I just wanted to point out that it seemed that the cause of my partner's illness was a hormonal imbalance that was exacerbated by her contraceptive coil. I'm unsure of the science behind that, but we are certainly doing better. Thank you to all those who helped our situation before. TLDR, my partner struggled with depression until her contraceptive coil was removed. Our lives have improved a lot since. Thank you to all those who helped and commented. Comments. This is amazing. I think it's shocking the effect birth control can have on women's bodies. So happy she is doing much better now. This should always be considered when women change their reproductive system, or even as they enter into premenopause. Thank you for posting this because a lot of people, women included, don't realize how serious this can be. It was mind-blowing for me to realize that after getting off the pill in my late 30s my PMS just went through the roof. I'm seeing a doctor about PMDD in a few weeks, and the knowledge that this is just my hormones fucking with me is so helpful. I'm not crazy. I don't suck. It's a medical condition that can be managed. I can get through this. I'm so happy that y'all are able to get through it as well. Stories number 8. My boss leads a clique that gossips about other staff, and now wants to have a drunk sleepover. I work for the government in a small office where there is 1 director, 9 educational specialists, of which I am 1, 5 support staff, and 4 specialists who share our office space but actually report to a different department. I originally applied for a specialist position, and while I did not get the job, they hired me as support staff because they wanted me at the organization and I had the necessary skills. After 1 month, the person they hired for the specialist position quit, and I was asked to apply again. This time, I was selected. The director of our organization was promoted just before I was hired. Previously, she had been a specialist for many years, and the other specialists are some of her very best friends. I like her and the other specialists and I have enjoyed my job a lot so far. However, last week I was invited out for dinner and drinks, which is where my problems began. I really did not want to spend my Friday night at work, because for me, this dinner was going to cause me a lot of anxiety and make me work at socializing all night long, but I decided to go and try to build relationships. At the dinner were my boss and 6 of the 9 specialists. They have all worked together for over 3 years and have made their girls' nights a tradition, so no spouses are allowed. I assumed the other 3 specialists were not there because of scheduled conflicts, but I found out during the course of the night that 2 of them are not invited because they are male and these dinners are only for ladies, and the other female specialist is not invited because they don't get along. They also do not seem to like the male specialists very much. I was hoping to be able to learn a little bit about my colleagues' and bosses' hobbies and families, but instead they spent the entire evening venting and gossiping about the employees that weren't there. I assumed that there would be some shop talk, but I felt very uncomfortable because our boss was joining in, and unlike the rest of them, I haven't been friends with her since before she was a supervisor, and because I didn't have anything to contribute to the conversation. I really don't like gossip, I don't like negativity, and I happen to like the support staff and specialists who weren't there. By the end of the night, my previous boss and current colleague had shared details about my family that I had mistakenly thought were from private conversations between us. I knew the scores that the people who weren't there had received on their annual performance reviews, and I had basically been warned, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. They want to have a drunk sleepover in a few months, which everyone is excited about. These are academic professionals ranging in age from 35 to 60, I am in my 20s, but I used to be a teacher, so this is not my first professional job, and I had assumed they would behave more professionally. I have zero interest in going out with them again, but I know that will put me on the outside with the rest of the office, and they will probably spend their next dinner gossiping about my performance reviews. I also feel that now I can't go to my boss with any problems because it will be spread around to everyone in the office, and I am a rather private person. Can you offer any advice? I do enjoy the actual work I do, and of course in our economy I am grateful to have a job, especially since my husband was just laid off. As always, please head to the link for Allison's advice. The AAM commentariat was also equally appalled, as am I. Update. At first, I tried to keep to myself and remain professional, but interactions with my co-workers kept getting worse. I would work an event while they would smoke outside or bring their children and entertain them, but at the same time they were too busy to find time to train me on parts of my job. I kept trying to work hard and develop quality educational materials, but eventually it ended up in exactly what one of your readers predicted. In June, my boss called me in to talk about traits like poor interactions and rapport with others, standoffish or snobbish, not a team player, unapproachable. I was disappointed and relieved at the same time. We discussed how this might not be the best place for me, and she did me the courtesy of being understanding and supportive, and she wrote me a positive letter of reference. Although I know this goes against your advice, I gave my notice with nothing lined up because I was so desperate to get out of there. My husband had found a job in April, so he was supportive of the decision to go back down to one income so that I wouldn't have to come home feeling miserable every day. Interestingly, after it started to get around the small office that I would be leaving in a few weeks, I started receiving visits from each and every one of the unpopular people telling me that I would be missed because I'm one of the good ones, and that they understand why I'm leaving and wish they could do the same. One of them told me she cries herself to sleep every night but can't leave without finding another job first. I had been feeling sort of ashamed that I was such a quitter and that I couldn't just suck it up and get along with everyone, but their comments made me realize that it wasn't just me who found the office culture toxic, and I felt lucky that I could get out. Now I am struggling trying to find another job, but I have been doing some volunteer work and trying to make connections while I search. While I have been on a few interviews, I haven't found anything yet. I've accepted that I left the best job in my area as far as pay and opportunities. On paper it really was an awesome job. However, since the best job was that horrible, it's really given me new perspective. Thanks to you and your readers for your advice. Stories number 9. Just lost my healthcare. I'm 25 years old. I was at work in a meeting. My doctor just called, so I stepped out. She let me know that she filled my testosterone prescription for the next 3 months, but Trump signed an executive order today saying the federal government won't provide funding for gender-affirming care for people under age 19, and my doctor's practice is federally grant-funded. They're pausing all current gender healthcare at their practice. Even though I'm over 19, I'm just sitting at my desk now just staring at the wall. I'm in a super rural area. My guess is that every practice within 75 miles receives federal grant funding too. What am I supposed to do? If I called my health insurance, could they help me find a new prescriber? Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, is there a Planned Parenthood that's drive-able? Reply, there's one about an hour away and one of my friends said they do telehealth. I'm probably just going to have to wait before scheduling since I still technically have 3 months of my prescription at the pharmacy. Commenter, you should contact Chase Strangio from the ACLU. I believe he is looking for reports of folks being denied their GAC, gender-affirming care, due to these EOs, executive orders. He's you/Chasa Strangio on IG and Threads. Reply, I sent him a message, thank you. Commenter, this is bad enough just saying they aren't doing HRT anymore, but is she saying she cannot be your PCP in any way? Reply, she is still able to be my PCP, and mentioned that she would keep my 6-month checkup in the books in case anything changed. But my HRT is 99% of the reason I go to the doctor. Update post. Original post is viewable through my profile. Apologies, since I'm on mobile, I couldn't hyperlink. The TLDR, my doctor called me on Monday and informed me that their practice would no longer be providing treatment for gender-affirming care as a result of a recent presidential executive order, even though the EO was for people under 19, even though I'm 25. Also, because it was asked a few times, this happened in Michigan, and I've been on HRT for 5+ years. It's a practice that includes like 15+ physicians, and I think that the decision was made over my PCP's head, given that she once told me that she literally moved states to be able to provide gender-affirming care here. First off, genuinely, thank you so much for all the replies and messages. I genuinely felt frozen after that phone call and didn't know where to start, and you all really helped me get my feet off the ground. A couple people mentioned contacting the ACLU, which, truthfully, I thought, there's no way that the ACLU will get back to me, but I sent a message anyway. They actually called me a few hours after my post and we talked about the executive orders and my rights. They offered to fax my provider a letter reminding them of my rights and some other legal terms. It's crazy how a post on Reddit resulted in my name being on the official ACLU letterhead. Anyway, today my doctor's physician assistant called me and shared that their practice is reversing their decision and they will continue to provide gender-affirming care. I'm still keeping a bunch of the resources that y'all shared saved, including Planned Parenthood, Plume, and looking into a private endocrinologist. This whole experience just reminded me how great this community is. I appreciate y'all, love. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, I'm so glad the ACLU helped you with this and that the office reversed their decision. Congrats. BTW, can you share how you contacted the ACLU about this? Reply, I went to the ACLU homepage and found the Michigan branch, and then filled out the contact us form on their website. I was also told to reach out to Chase Strange because he is specifically asking to hear from trans people whose healthcare is impacted by recent legislation. Chase was able to connect me with someone locally. Commenter, you can also ask your DR if there is a way to rebill or reword your diagnosis and prescription. My doctor wrote mine as hormonal imbalance, low testosterone. Even cis men deal with that. Reply, I saw a post like that here earlier, and I'll definitely ask at my next checkup. Commenter, I'm glad this worked out, but not everywhere is making the reversal. Washington State AG did not sign on to defend transgender healthcare and multiple places are dropping their trans clients. In Washington State, reply, 100%, I'm happy to celebrate the small wins, but it'll be a long 4+ years. I did get told that the ACLU is filing lawsuits against the executive orders for impeding on our rights to healthcare, but obviously that will take time to get to court. Stories number 10. Neighbor is doing weird things that are threatening to me. A few weeks ago, a new neighbor moved in across the street. To my knowledge, it's one guy who is about 40 to 50 years old. For the past few weeks since he moved in, he has been taking walks around the neighborhood, and every once in a while when he passes my house, my living room has a window that can see into the front yard, he stands and watches me. When I go outside to investigate, he just says something to the tune of admiring my shingle work or stargazing. He has used these excuses before. He never comes directly onto my property when he does this. A few days ago I came home, and when I went to pull the trash cans back from the street, my neighbor is sitting on his front porch with a rifle in his lap in plain view. I ask him if there is anything wrong and he just nods at me. I went back into my house and called the police. Now the spot I called the police from was in my kitchen. The only way to look into my kitchen from a window is if you walked up to my living room window and peered to the left. After hanging up the phone, I turned towards the living room and saw my neighbor about 2 feet away from my window, peering in with the rifle. I run into my room and lock the door. After the police arrive, I tell them what happened, and they told me that since he wasn't pointing a gun at me, that it wasn't a threat. The most they can do is trespass him, but by the time they arrived, he left his house. Yesterday I came home at around 10 p.m. and found a dead fish in my mailbox. Without any evidence, how can I stop my neighbor from harassing me? Can I get a restraining order against him? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Make a police report about the dead fish. Make the police take the report. Even if you don't actually know for sure who put it there, you have your suspicions, tell them. If they refuse to take a report, calmly escalate the matter to an officer with a higher standing and don't leave until a report is taken. Keep all of the police reports you make. And, as everyone else has suggested, definitely get a good home security system, preferably with several cameras. Commenter 2. I do know shit about the law, but I'd say you should get a camera installed and probably keen any evidence of things put through your door. Then speak to police/lawyer to see what your options are. OOP to a deleted comment. I'm fully prepared for any future aggression, but I am looking for a non-violent route first. I don't think I had cause in any of my previous encounters to use force. I believe my neighbor has been vandalizing my mailbox and shooting .22 caliber shots at my house February 12, 2019. So my previous post about this neighbor started here. Since then I got cameras with night vision, motion detection alerts, window tint for my living room and big thick curtains. I also got a few of those stickers for the area of my house that says, insured by Glock, to deter any intruders. Now the first night I got my cameras, I checked them the morning after to see how they worked. I made sure that there are no blind spots and all of them are fixed with no movement at all. When I checked the cameras the morning before, someone walked up to them wearing all black including a mask and pointed them down. When I left for work that morning, someone spray painted a knife on my mailbox. I filed a report with the postal inspector and called the police. The police said without any video evidence, there wasn't much I could do. That night, I woke up to a loud noise hitting my house every so often. I checked the cameras and couldn't see anything, so I went out and investigated and noticed small holes on my house. Looking around the ground, I see discharged rounds. I call the police again and confirm that it was .22 shots shot from far away. I have a concrete home, so that would explain the lack of penetration. The police offer to have a car patrol the neighborhood and sit outside for 3 days and nothing happens. I asked them if I could get a protective order from my neighbor who has a history of being hostile, and they said since I had no direct evidence implicating him, that I can't file it out of nowhere despite previous confrontations. I filed another report with a different officer and got the same spiel. I asked for them to take fingerprints of the bullets then, and they chuckled and put the bullets in a bag and left. 3 days ago, I heard shots again and checked the cameras and noticed they were facing my neighbor's house just where I put them, and I see a silhouette shooting from the middle of my street before stopping and running to the back of my neighbor's house. After that I call the police in my room while watching the cameras. The police come and do walk me through the same BS as last time even after I showed them the cameras. They knocked on my neighbor's door and he claimed he heard and saw nothing. After they left I asked him if he was telling the truth and he looked at and smiled. It was very unnerving. I don't know what to do at this point. Top comment. Commenter. OP, a suggestion for you might be to purchase a trail camera, essentially an outdoor camera that runs on batteries and records to a memory card, and try to place it somewhere non-obvious on the outskirts/edge of your property. A few other thoughts: go to your local county courthouse and actually inquire there to what the requirements are for a restraining and/or no contact order. The police may not be the best persons to ask about if your neighbor qualifies for one. Contact your local chief of police and let them know your property has been vandalized and shot at. Ask if there's anything else that can be done. Final update. This similar behavior is something I suffered over the course of 1 to 2 months in Florida. I made posts in LA asking for help and got reasonably good answers. Unfortunately, my neighbor pushed it too far and tried to break in my house in the middle of the night after a series of weird escalating behavior. As a result, I shot him multiple times. I was questioned and interviewed over 7 hours and then released due to Florida's stand your ground laws. Turned out neighbor was mentally ill and the family is currently trying to sue me for wrongful death. Hope this goes better for LAOP than me. I should have just moved. Stories number 11. My husband wants a white name for our baby. I'm Middle Eastern and my husband is white. When we started dating, I told him that my culture was a big deal for me and I wasn't sure if we'd last, since I was probably gonna be more interested in someone who had the same ethnicity and values and all that. Not only that, my parents are strict Catholics and he didn't even know what religion he was. He said he was maybe Christian or something, but he wasn't sure. He was pretty insistent that he'd try. He chased me for a while and he took me to a Middle Eastern restaurant for our first date. So corny, but I love him. He was really open to learning about my culture and everything. He was almost fascinated with it all. Basically, my life was my big fat Greek wedding. I was partially embarrassed by everything and thought it would scare him away, but he seemed to love it. We got married and things were going well. I'm pregnant now and we were talking about our baby. Some stuff that he said just bothered me and I want to know if I'm crazy or was it weird. I have pale skin and black hair and brown eyes, but green eyes do run in my family. My husband has brown hair and green eyes. He had bleach blonde hair as a baby, like the blondest baby ever, and it darkened by the time he was a kid. We were talking about how our baby would look and I was teasing him that she'd definitely look like me because darker features are dominant and he has brown hair too, and then he brought up how he used to be blonde. So I told him how, you know, my hair is pretty much black, so she's probably gonna have really dark hair. I don't think she'll have a blonde phase. He seemed kind of upset about that because he wanted his daughter to have cute blonde hair, but I told him it was okay and she'll have green eyes like him, and he was like, no, I'm pretty sure she's gonna come out looking like one of you guys. I told him that yeah, she's gonna look at least a little Arab. I don't even know what that meant. I didn't want to ruin the mood, so I just continued the talk and he seemed upset in a way. We started talking about baby names and he had really cute name ideas. They were nice, but I asked him what he thought about the names I liked and he just blurted out, can we give her a white name? She's my baby too. I was not giving her ethnic names. I brought up American names too. I really liked Diana, for example, which is Arabic, and I know my family would really like that, and it's an English name too. I can't exactly go to my parents and be like, yeah, our baby's name is Jennifer. Not only that, I want her name to be related to my culture. Diana doesn't sound ethnic and it's obviously not hard to pronounce or anything and she wouldn't bullied at school. And it's a white name. I thought it was the best of both worlds. I would be so open to giving her whatever American middle name he wants, but our baby is gonna be 50% Middle Eastern and 50% white. I think she should have a first name that's connected to both cultures. He just got mad and said I wasn't taking him into consideration and he wants to choose the name since I made her look Arab and I got my part already. I asked him to calm down since we don't even know how she looks and for all we know, she has blonde hair and green eyes and looks nothing like me and 100% like him. He just got mad and continued on and then he was like, by the way, hummus is gross and went to bed. Now I'm sitting here in our living room wondering what to do, lol. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I am Asian and my husband is white. When we got together and decided to have children, we went through similar motions with me wanting to give respect to my culture and traditions and him being born the perfect Aryan child, blonde hair, blue eyes, wanting more input. What I learnt was, being part of certain ethnic groups, we tend to take our cultures seriously and think white people have no culture. But they do. Him wanting a white name and being petulant is his way of wanting to be a part of this. He has made a lot of effort in the past during your courtship in trying to embrace your culture. He is probably feeling like you are trying to say that your culture is far more superior than his, since your child is gonna end up with similar features to yours. I know it is not in your intention to exclude him in any way and you are right to feel a bit puzzled by his behavior, but I think you need to open the conversation with him and try to see where he might be coming from. He is the opposite of being racist. Reply. Thank you for your comment. I know I got a ton of comments that he's racist and this and that. I don't think that's it. He loves me and he loves my family and my culture. I think he's just a bit concerned with our baby being 100% Arab with her appearance and name and he wants to feel represented too, which I understand. That's the reason why I want a name that we will both appreciate, something Arabic and American, simple and easy to understand. He knows how important that is for me, so I don't think he's trying to completely overlook what I want. I think he maybe got annoyed since we were already discussing how she might look like me and not inherit any of his features. Top comments. Commenter 1. You husband and his issues aside, Diana is a beautiful name that has been used in many cultures and has many meanings. It's also a timeless classic that never dates itself, like some 90s names I can think of. I would be sure to point out to your husband that Diana truly connects your cultures, and it has really great cultural symbolism, Princess Diana, of course, but also Wonder Woman. Commenter 2. Better name her Hummus. Reply. The ultimatum for him, we can name her Diana or Hummus, you get to pick. Update. Not really sure if anyone is interested but we talked it out. He felt like the baby would look 100% like me and nothing like him and he was feeling left out. He said she wouldn't feel like his baby if she looked completely like me and had a name that I chose and that he had no part in. That's it. He's not racist or disgusting and doesn't want an Arab baby, so I reassured him that we have no idea how she'd even look. But I know what he means. He really had to accommodate all these years, which I am so appreciative of. He did not have to do that. He could have taken the easy way out and dumped me for someone that didn't require so much effort. But he learned to love our foods and learned literally 5 words of Arabic to show my family and impress them with LOL. And he's not racist at all, he is an amazing guy and I'm so lucky to be with him. So we're gonna find our names together. If we both agree on an American name, it's fine. She really is gonna be surrounded by her Arab heritage so much with our big family and everything. If a name helps him feel more connected to our baby, it's all his. He apologized for dissing Hummus and for acting a little childish, and I apologized for being controlling and not taking his feelings and own culture into account. But we are fine, we are all made up now and I love him. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I love this ending. Smiley face, super happy you guys resolved this. Reply. Thank you, so am I. I hate fighting with my husband so much, it's the worst feeling in the world and I'm so glad we can move on and just focus on finding a brand new name together. Commenter 2. Man, I'm just glad he took back what he said about Hummus. Commenter 3. What kind of monster insults Hummus even in anger? You leave Hummus out of your personal problems. Stories number 12. I, 23M, am madly in love with my best friend, 23F. So I've been best friends with this girl, Amanda, for my entire life. We were neighbors and our moms were very close. We've both been through the same struggles, single moms, bullying throughout school. She is my closest friend and she means the world to me. When we were both 20, our moms kicked us out of our houses. I guess they thought we should grow up, whatever they meant by that. We ended up finding a place to live together, and have been living together for 3 years now. We graduated college last year and now have decent paying jobs. I've always had a crush on her, but never acted upon it in fear of ruining our friendship. I've had a couple of GFs, but I never really saw a future with any of them. I guess I was with them just to say that I was in a relationship. She on the other hand just got out of a relationship. She was with him for 4 years. He cheated on her and left her for some other girl I don't know. We've both been single for 10 months. I really want to tell her I love her, but I'm also scared as shit that if she doesn't reciprocate the same feelings, our friendship will be ruined. Remember, we live together, so it would just add to the awkwardness. What should I do? TLDR, madly in love with my best friend. Don't know how to tell her. Comment, tell her. You're not being a good friend by carrying a torch for her. Maybe she feels the same. Maybe she doesn't. But you don't want to be her friend, you want to be her lover. And until you get a yes or a no, you can't move on with your own life. It may mean that you'll need to move out, but that will happen anyway at some point. Embrace your inertia and just do it. Edit. As for how to approach it, just sit her down and say something like, I hope this isn't too awkward, but I've actually had a crush on you for a while now. I didn't want to say anything before while you were in a relationship, but since we've both been single the feeling has really grown. What would you think about being more than friends? So after reading through the comments and doing some thinking by myself, I decided to tell her. I told her about this yesterday morning. Amanda was sitting in the living room watching TV and I sat right beside her. I turned off the TV and said we needed to talk. I started talking nonsense for a couple of minutes and she asked what the hell I was talking about. Finally I got right down to it. I straight up told her I was in love with her. I went on about how much I loved her and how I know her better than anyone else. At this point, I started crying. Maybe it was the fact that I was pouring my heart out to her, but it happened. After I finished talking, she sat there and was silent for damn near a minute. I immediately thought the worst, she didn't love me back. Out of nowhere she says, fuck, I've been waiting for you to tell me this. This seriously caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting this at all. Apparently she felt the same way I felt about her. She said she always liked me as a friend, but living together made her like me more than just a friend. I told her that we should give this a shot, since we both feel the same way. She agreed and now we're officially a couple. To cement that, she took my hand and led me to the bedroom. What happened next was the loudest, greatest most passionate sex I've ever had. TLDR, told Amanda I'm in love with her, she feels the same way. We're a couple now. Comment, you flipping biscuit. I am proud of you buddy, well done. Stories number 13. My wife of 22 years, partner of 25, came out as a lesbian and she's known since college. My wife, F42, Emily, and I, M42, have been together since freshman year, but we didn't make it official until our senior year. We were high school sweethearts, and ever since out awkward unofficial stage people have always told us we're the perfect couple. We never truly had a fight, only arguments of different sizes that we always ended positively. We went to the same college, moved in together in a city on the other side of the country, got similar jobs, bought a house and had 2 boys and a girl. From my perspective we've always been close, our love had always been true and passionate and our lives were made to be with each other, but apparently all these years have been a lie. Last night when I arrived home from an exhausting shift, Emily sat me down and told me we had to talk. She proceeded to tell me how she's a lesbian, that she's known since college, and that she's gone with multiple dates with many women over our entire marriage. She justified herself, saying that her family would have never accepted her and that she never actually cheated on me because she was being her true self with the women she slept with, and to end it all she wanted us to have a lavender marriage, so she cold be herself while her parents thought she was a straight woman with a loving nuclear family. I don't remember much after that. The news hit me like a truck and made a wreck of my emotions. I've never been emotionally mature, I'm a closed-off person. On really emotionally intense moments I tend to shut down and force myself to not feel at all. I woke up this morning on a random mall parking lot in my car, with 20+ missed calls from Emily and about 100 texts from her and some from my oldest son. I don't know what to do now, how to act, how to process these heartbreaking news. I feel like I've lost all direction and stability in life and that my entire adult life was founded on a lie. None of the words of love she showered me with were true, the nights of passion were an act, our family is a product of a lie. I'm not happy for her, or proud or anything like that, if anything I feel pure rage towards her. I need advice. Edit, I've booked a hotel for the night, I'm not coming home. I told my oldest we'll have a chat tomorrow after school with the other 2 present. I'll take this night to go over the events, find resources, and think about what's next. Thank you all. Edit 2. I read most of your comments and DMs, even if I don't respond I'm truly grateful for your words of advice and your help. I'll be taking it from here. Stories number 14. My 43F wife told me, 46M, that she feels much safer going out with her girlfriends than with me. Are her concerns fair? My wife and I have been married for over 20 years and have a daughter away in college. Since we became empty nesters, we have been traveling a bit more and doing things. We live in the suburbs but it's only a short trip to a big city and a bustling downtown area. I work from home doing remote work on the computer as a programmer and she works in the city. Some nights, she goes out and tries new restaurants or bars with a small group of girlfriends and she would then recommend places she's been to for our once-a-week date nights. The issue is that she's been acting strange about us going together to some of the same places she has gone, sometimes multiple times, with her girlfriends. She'd make excuses or try to downplay the experience she had when she raved about it earlier. Sometimes she'd suggest doing date night at a nearby mall, which she has hated in the past. That was our date night location for many years. We'd drive our teen daughter to hang out the mall and we'd go to the Cheesecake Factory or occasionally a higher-end Italian place that opened up but it was still a chain. So I confronted her and she said that she was trying to spare my feelings and that she feels safer being out with her girlfriends than she does with me. One of the last restaurants in the city we went to date night at has a very large homeless problem nearby and you can't there without encountering them. We had an encounter with one guy who would not take no for an answer and I thought I did pretty well because I got him to eventually leave us alone but apparently a similar thing happened in their girl group and one of her friends turned around and quite loudly and forcefully told him to stop following them and he just scampered off and muttered something. Once she was getting it off her chest, she seemed apologetic but then almost angry because I guess she was bottling it up for a long time. She then told me that she never felt comfortable with me traveling with our daughter last year to her new college to move in and get settled but since I was able to work remotely, it was easier for me to go and she held her tongue about how she felt to spare my feelings. She told me that the only way she felt good about it was knowing that our daughter took a woman's self-defense course and that she knew what to look out for while I always look like a tourist in new places. I got defensive and told her that I traveled for work to cities around the world that were more dangerous than America, including India. She then immediately said that I was with a group. And now you have to see my point. She asked how I would feel if we went as a couple to India and I said I'd feel responsible for her safety. She said that is how she feels about me when we go out. When she is with me alone, she feels responsible for me because she loves me, not because she thinks I am a coward and would run away but simply that this is something she does better at than I do. She said that she wants to relax when she goes out and not be responsible for someone. She doesn't feel that way with her girlfriends at all. She knew this would crush me to hear it, so she tried to avoid it. She said that she is more used to the city, more used to dealing with sketchy-looking men, more aware of her surroundings and frankly more capable of fighting if it came to that. That last one shocked me but I've never been in a fight, I've gotten bullied and beaten up in the past but I was never in a fight. She has. She's fought boys back when she was in school and held her own. She is also very much into working out and fitness and I sit at a computer for work and have to work long hours. I go to the gym sometimes and the one thing I have going for me is that I am tall but I've never been able to put on much muscle or build strength. I'd love to hear from women in a similar situation as my wife. You might feel that you are more capable than your husband or boyfriend and how do you handle it and do you think my wife is overreacting or being fair? It hurt my pride but I can also see her point too. It makes me want to do better at making her more confident in me but realistically my work schedule is super crazy right now. ETA. Came back to look at the responses after being away today and it's insane the number of people who immediately assume she must be cheating and this is all some elaborate excuse. It makes no sense. There are easier ways for someone to conceal cheating than all of this if that is what she wanted to do. What toxic place this is. Stories number 15. Wibta if I move out of our apartment knowing my fiancé and his mom can't afford it without me, F29, and my ex fiancé, M27, have been living together for about 1.5 years. Fiancé got his undergraduate degree, worked for a couple years and then decided to get an MBA which is how he ended up in our city. We moved in together after he finished his MBA program. Fiancé is from the Midwest and his mom has always wanted him to move back. When he told her he was staying here she was heartbroken. I went to college and got my degree in a STEM field. After I graduated, I got a job with my current company and moved to the city where we currently live. It's a big international company with multiple locations in the US and international. I love my job, I like the company I work for, and the pay is pretty good. All in all, a pretty good deal. During COVID my office shut down and we all went WFH. After COVID they decided not to reopen this office so I've been 100% WFH since early 2020. I currently make considerably more than him, mainly because I've been working for 7 years and I'm in tech. I had been living by myself in a one-bedroom apartment and just had my office set up in the living room since it was just me. When we moved in together, we decided to get a 2-bedroom apartment so I could use the extra room as an office. Because of this I was paying 2/3 of the rent and he paid 1/3. We split everything else 50/50. So the problem started this past May. Fiancé's mom told him she wanted to move to our city to be closer to him. She asked if she could stay with us while she looked for a job and got settled. She's a teacher, so figured she'd be able to get a teaching job pretty quickly. Because of that, I didn't really mind her staying with us, as I figured it would just be for a couple months over the summer. Since I thought it would only be for a couple months, I moved my office into a corner of our bedroom and fiancé bought a bed to put in the second bedroom. The problem is she never applied for any teaching positions and has been living with us for 6 months now. She and I have really been struggling with each other since she moved in. I can't make her understand that I work full-time. She constantly interrupts while I'm working, which is bad enough, but she even interrupts when I'm on Teams calls. She always asks me to take her places BC she doesn't like to drive in our city. She has pretty outdated views of gender roles and is constantly giving me a hard time for not doing more around the house and making fiancé help with chores, do his own laundry, etc. The constant criticism and insults are just really wearing me down. And I hate having my office shoved in a corner of the bedroom. Back in September I told my fiancé that since it looks like his mom is going to stay a while we should split the rent 3 ways. He told me she can't afford that since she has to conserve money until she gets a job. I told him I wasn't happy paying extra for a bedroom I can't use, so finally he said we could do a 50-50th split. I could afford to pay the extra, but I hate the idea of funding her lifestyle. Every time I complain about her or the situation he says he agrees but doesn't know what to do because he can't kick out his mom. And he won't talk to her about the way she treats me or how she behaves. When I ask what the long-term plan is, he just says he doesn't know. I've thought about giving him an ultimatum to tell her she has to leave, but I think he'd just end up resenting me for essentially putting his mom on the street. So one of my girlfriends is losing her roommate the end of February. Our lease renews June 1st. I'm very strongly considering moving out of our current apartment and moving in with her. I can afford to pay my part of rent on our current apartment and also half the rent at my friend's apartment. It's not ideal, but I'm not a big spender, so it's doable. The issue is, if he and his mom aren't able to pay for 1/3 the rent each, there is no way they could cover the whole thing on their own. But I can't live like this anymore, so I'm pretty sure this is what I'll do, but I wanted to see if people thought I'd be the AH for leaving them like this. Comments. Commenter 1. His mom is the biggest A because she specifically planned this. It isn't that she's had bad luck, she didn't even apply. Add in that she didn't respect your workplace and insults you. She's basically trying to be the matriarch of the house, while being a complete mooch. The biggest problem is your fiancé though. This is just a glimpse of your future with a mama's boy. He's made it clear that he's okay with her walking all over you, and she's not leaving. You're going to end up as a third wheel in your own marriage. Commenter 2. I agree. His mom is taking advantage, and your fiancé isn't setting boundaries. It's a big concern for the future. You deserve better. NTA. Commenter 3. Exactly this. OP, you're not leaving *them, you're escaping a situation that was never fair to you in the first place. His mom didn't just end up staying, she chose not to apply for jobs, and your fiancé chose to let her. Meanwhile, you've been paying the majority of the rent, lost your office, and now you're stuck in your own home with someone who disrespects you daily. If he wanted to build a life with you, he would have had a plan for this months ago. Instead, you're the only one being asked to sacrifice. Time to choose yourself, because they already have. Commenter 3. And be prepared for them to be upset because they are losing their money bags. They were using you and had absolutely no respect for you / neither one of them. If you don't leave you will be the AH. Commenter 3. I'm a teacher. An old, retired teacher. I could substitute teach every day this week if I wanted to do so. I still get requests to apt interview for both public school and private school jobs. MIL could work if she wanted to work. I'm in my late 60s and drive all over and in Mexico and Europe on vacation. She is needlessly helpless. Commenter 4. Good news, you discovered your fiancé is a mama's boy before you got legally entangled. The price is 3 months of paying double rent. Sucks, but much cheaper than a divorce, alimony, child support and years of therapy cause of dealing with that kind of MIL. Mommy wanted to prove her darling boy would pick her and take care of her. So she moved in and proved it. He won't stand up to her. Sadly, unless he gets some serious therapy and figures out how to unmesh, he's never going to. So tell him flat out, mommy wins. She gets her whittle boy back. You will find a grown man. You'll pay your portion of the rent for the next few months, but you're letting the landlord know you will not be renewing and do not use your income for renewal for him and mommy. I'm sorry you have to deal with this. You did what you could, but unless he wants to grow up, you're going to spend decades hearing how you don't cook right, clean right, raise your kids, spend money, vacation wrong, and have bad values. She, of course, knows better. Don't do that to yourself. And maybe, just maybe, this will make him realize he's got to get off mommy's titty if he ever wants a life of his own. Update: I posted here last week about the situation I'm in living with my soon-to-be ex-fiancé and his mom. I started off trying to reply to everyone's comments and keep up, but honestly I just got completely overwhelmed with all the comments. First off, I want to thank everyone for their feedback and comments, even the ones that were kind of harsh. Actually, probably especially the ones that were kind of harsh. I really needed some tough love to make me realize that I was letting my STBX and his mom take advantage of me. The more comments I read, the more pissed off I got. Honestly, I think I'm more pissed at myself for allowing this to happen and not advocating for myself more. This past weekend I got my STBX alone so we could talk, which was actually harder than it should have been because his mom always tries to tag along when we do anything. Going through all the comments everyone left and the PMs people sent really helped me decide how to approach this. And also, brought up a lot of good questions I should have thought of myself. Back to the discussion with the ex, I wanted to give him one more chance to pick us over his mom, not because I thought he would, but I just wanted to be able to tell myself I give him the opportunity. I explained again about how unhappy I am with the situation, how it's affecting my work because of her constant interruptions and just being unhappy and uncomfortable that I'm forced to work out of a corner in our bedroom. And I reminded him that until a few months ago I was paying the majority of the rent, and being that I make so much more than him, it's really my salary that keeps us all afloat. And I also brought up, again, the way she treats me and talks to me, and he replied the same way he has been. He agrees it's not right how she acts and that it's really uncomfortable for us all. WTF. I don't care if she's uncomfortable. Previously I would have dropped it there. But this time I told him how angry and disappointed I was that he let me pay for 2/3 of the rent when she first moved, and how unfair it was that I'm still paying for half when there are 3 people living there and she is the only one with her own bedroom. It was the same story, she has to conserve money since she doesn't have any income currently. Which brought up the question of where all her stuff went when she moved. What money does she use for incidentals? So evidently, when she got divorced, she asked for the divorce after my ex went off to college. It doesn't sound like her husband/ex's dad wanted the divorce. His dad bought her out of the equity in their house. Ex didn't have any idea how much that was or how much is left. But until she moved here she was working full-time as a teacher and living in a small apartment, so she should not have had to tap into the divorce settlement money very much. Other than that, X didn't have much insight to her finances other than what she told him, that she has to conserve money. I told him straight up that I'm moving out before the end of the month. And from now on I'm only paying 25%, as some of the commenters pointed out. She has a whole bedroom while I have to share with a man-child. So she should have to pay twice as much, and after I move out I'm not paying for anything else, no utilities, no food, nothing other than rent. I have a pretty idea what his finances are like, and if he has to pay 75% of the rent all by himself it's going to take a huge chunk of his net income. And after he pays utilities and buys groceries there won't be anything left for incidentals. Rent was due on the 1st but it's not late until after the 5th, so he has 2 days to come up with the $. If he doesn't come up with it and I end up covering, then I'll reduce the amount I pay in future months. The only reason I'm going to keep paying any of the rent is even after I move out, I'm still on the hook. I talked to the leasing office and they explained that since X and I signed a single rental agreement together, e.g. one contract we both signed as opposed to 2 contracts we sign individually, we are both responsible for the rent. They don't care who actually pays as long as it gets paid. The only alternative would be if he agrees to sign a new lease by himself or together with his mom. But in all likelihood he wouldn't be able to pass the credit check on his own, so I'm kind of stuck. I don't think he'll do anything stupid tough because he's going to need to find someplace to live after this, and a collection on his credit report wouldn't be good. I also told him that I'm going to find someplace to work during the day until I move so she can't bother me. My friend I'm moving in with said I could work there during the day since she and her current roommate have in person 9-5s. I took her up on that for now. After living with his mom, I'm not about to overstay my welcome, so I'm going to find some other options that I can rotate through. Someone suggested checking out the public library, or if it comes to it I'll get a membership at one of those WeWork kind of places. Just in case, I brought my important papers, files, valuables, and my friend is storing them for me until I move in. He really didn't take it well. The surprising thing to me is that he was surprised by everything. He seemed really shocked that I wasn't prioritizing his mom. I really got the feeling that he sincerely believed I wanted to take care of her as much as him, and he kept saying stuff like, "What about my mom? What am I going to tell her? That's how she is, but we still need to help her," etc. He asked about our relationship and the engagement. I told him after I move out I need some space from him. In a few months when we've both had some time/space to process what happened, if we both agree we can talk about the relationship. But he'd have to prove that he's going to have my back going forward and will set boundaries with his mom. I told him that just to avoid more drama, but I don't see a future in which we are together. I told him he needs to tell his mom because she's not my responsibility or problem and she'll know something's up when I start moving my stuff out. He hasn't told her what's going on yet, but this weekend I'm going to start moving things so he doesn't have much time. My friend's current roommate starts a new job in another state on the 3rd, so in reality I can probably move in 2 to 3 weeks, just depending when she actually leaves. I don't expect him to do anything bad, other than sulk and complain, but if he does something stupid, or doesn't pay his part of the rent, the ace up my sleeve is I'll tell the leasing office his mom moved in, which is prohibited in the lease. Honestly, getting evicted would solve a lot of my problems right now, so it's a pretty valid threat I think. Now that I've mentally and emotionally separated myself from him and his mom, I'm looking forward to her reaction when he tells her what's going on. If it gets too ugly, I'll find a cheap Airbnb or hotel or something. I've had some friends, including the one I'm moving in with, offer to let me couch surf for a few weeks, but I just can't do that to someone else. So, that's it. I'm leaving and I really don't care how that affects them. Comments. Commenter 1. You're at the end of a long and painful process, but I'm sure that you will be the better for it. Good luck. Commenter 2. Dude should really just marry his mom. Commenter 3. Notify your landlord in writing that you are moving out and to take you off the lease after June 1st. You wouldn't want to do nothing and accidentally trigger an automatic renewal. Reply. Already did that. I did it before I went to talk to the front office and confirmed that they received it while I was down there. New update. Hey everyone. I've been getting a lot of requests for updates, so I wanted to let everyone know how it went when X's mom found out about me not covering all the rent and moving out. TLDR, it was kind of a shit show. But I'm moved out and I'm off the lease. FMIL is on the lease now and she and X's dad are covering half the rent and STBX is covering the other half. Last week I started working out of my friend's apartment, the one I'm moving in with, so I didn't see X's mom on Monday. Tuesday around lunch she sent me text asking where I was. I told her I was working and I'd be home late tonight. She replied that X told her I wasn't going to be contributing as much, so she had to loan him money for rent. That wasn't a surprise to me, so I just replied with a thumbs up emoji. I had plans with my friend and her roommate, who I'm also friends with, to go out for dinner and then get some drinks. So by the time I got home it was after midnight and X's mom was already asleep. The fun started Wednesday morning. I was getting ready to go to work at my friend's place when X's mom stopped me and said we need to discuss my financial situation. Then she went on a whole tirade about her having to cover my part of the rent, me making foolish choices by going out to dinner when I couldn't even pay rent, I was irresponsible with money and inconsiderate of the impact it had on others, blah, blah, blah. She went on to say that if she was going to have to pay my share of the rent that she expected me to do a better job of keeping on top of chores and keeping the apartment clean and organized. I told her I was moving out since obviously STBX hadn't told her yet. She seemed, I don't know, pleased with herself. All she had to say was, maybe that's for the best. When I got home that night, right off the bat, she wanted to talk. She said instead of me moving out, we could get a bigger apartment and she'd be willing to help by paying the difference between a 2BR and a 3BR. Then we could go back to the arrangement X and I had before she moved in, me paying 2/3 of the balance and him paying 1/3. Honestly, when she was saying this I think my brain vapor locked. She was making it sound like she was doing us a favor by offering to pay the increase in rent. Apparently this man-child who tells his mom literally every single thing about our lives and relationship hadn't bothered to tell his mom how much I was actually contributing. It seems like once she discovered X wasn't paying for everything like she thought, she wasn't as excited about me moving out. I tried to be polite and told her I'd already given notice to our apartment complex that I was moving out at the end of the month and already committed to move in with my friend. She kept pushing the issue and said if she was willing to pay the difference, I should just stay, because that would really be best for everyone. By then I was getting annoyed and told her that because of the way she has been acting and treating me I had no interest in living with her anymore. That's when the best line of this whole dumpster fire came out of her mouth. She said she was worried I was taking advantage of her son, and if we had told her about our financial arrangements she would have been more understanding of why I wasn't keeping up with the apartment. I told her maybe a good lesson from this is to try being nice to everyone in the future and not just the people you think can help you. And I asked her why she didn't help out more since she wasn't doing anything productive all day. She did not like either of those comments and it got pretty hostile with both of us yelling at each other. And to be fair, we both said some pretty awful things to one another. Finally I told her I was going to inform the rental office that she had been living there contrary to the lease agreement because getting evicted would be worth it to see her living on the street. I grabbed my laptop and went to my friends. I didn't even bother packing an overnight bag. Next afternoon, Thursday, ex texted me and said he had added his mom to the lease effective the first of the month and that she and his dad, I have no idea how that poor man got roped into this, would pay half the rent and ex would pay the other half. I confirmed with the property manager that I was off the lease and didn't have any further obligation. I got it in email so I have a record. I put disconnect orders in for the utilities under my name and told him to call and set up accounts under his name. I'm going to lose the damage deposit, it goes to whoever is living there when lease ends, but it's a small price to pay to be free. On the way home I stopped and got a bunch of boxes to pack my stuff up. She was pretty hostile when I got home and when she saw how much I was taking she got worse. I ended up taking Friday off to finish packing and on Saturday got some friends to help move stuff to my new place. I'm going to pay my friends some rent for the next 2 weeks until the one move out. They didn't want me to, but I'm not going to stay in someone's home and not contribute. If nothing else, living with ex and his mom taught me that. Last night ex and I got together and talked for the first time since Saturday. He said his mom is staying until June when the lease is up, then she's moving back to their hometown. According to him, she just really didn't like living here and that's why she didn't try to find a job. Then he asked how long a break I thought we should take. A few commenters gave me a hard time for stringing him along, so I was brutally honest and told him I could not be with someone that allowed others to treat me the way he allowed his mom to treat me and that I hoped he learned to stand on his own and establish some boundaries. He looked like he was going to cry and just got up and left. As far as I'm concerned, this is over and done. I'm going to call it a learning experience and be glad I found out how awful ex's mom is before we got married. The thing that amazes me is the amount of damage this woman leaves in her wake and how utterly oblivious she is. She destroyed our engagement and relationship, is leaving ex in a much worse financial situation, pushed back her ex-husband's retirement by I don't know how many years since now he likely has to pay off of the mortgage, or second mortgage, he had to get to pay her half of the equity. And she made my life hell for 6+ months, and she's walking away completely unscathed. According to my ex, she's going back to her hometown and picking up her old teaching job. I'm thinking about going to visit my parents next week and working from their house. I want to tell them how boring and undramatic they are and how I'm so grateful for that and love them for it lol. Comments. Commenter 1. Always cut toxic people out of your life. Nuclear missile dodged. Good on you. I hope the old bat thinks of you every day she gets dressed for work. Commenter 2. Yes. Glad you got out. He needed to hear the harsh truth of not coming back to him. He did this to himself when he didn't back you up. Who wants to be with a spineless jellyfish? Reply, honestly, I was intestinally kind of a bitch. He's complicit in torching our relationship, but I did love him. I was worried if I wasn't blunt with him he'd try to talk me into trying again and I wanted to close that door for good. Stories number 16. My mom got a $30,000 personal loan in my name without my knowledge. The account is from February, which was when they bought a boat. Now, they've missed 4 payments and told me they're going to let it default since the boat can't be repossessed and they're going to call DCFS on me. I knew my mom had her eye on a pontoon boat for the last year. She and my dad retired in 2022 and while they aren't swimming in money, they weren't hurting much for it either, or so I thought. They bought a boat in February for a little over $30,000. I didn't think a lot of it since they always rented a pontoon boat 2 to 3 times a year and didn't appear to have money issues. At the start of July, I began getting my ducks in a row to buy a house. When I applied for a pre-approval, I found out my credit score was barely over 600 and I had an extra $30,000 plus in debt I had no idea about. Even worse, it was 90+ days late. I told the lender the account wasn't mine and he said my identity had probably been stolen, but it was probably someone close to me as the money would have had to go to a bank account with my name on it. I shared a bank account with my ex-fiancée and asked the bank to look into it. They said the account had been closed a couple of years ago, when we broke up, and no attempts to send money to it/take money from it have been made since. I filed a dispute with the company and the credit agencies as it was obvious to me I had been hacked or my identity had been stolen. About a week ago, I got a notice from the company to my apartment, first I had ever heard from them, saying they were going to charge off the account if payment wasn't made. I requested more information from them and they linked me to their fraud department. They were able to tell me where the money was sent to a bank account from when I was a minor that I shared with my mom. When I called that bank, they confirmed there was activity on the account and the statements showed the loan coming in and almost all of the money being transferred into what looks like my mom's account at the same bank. I haven't used that bank in more than a decade. I called my mom and asked her about it and she, after a long pause, said that's how they bought the boat. They made one payment on the account and realized they probably couldn't afford the monthly payment for the next 5 years. When I asked why they hadn't told me, she said it was because they figured I would say no. They were right, and that they had worked hard in their lives and wanted to enjoy retirement. It ended by them saying the boat couldn't be repossessed because it was a personal loan. My mom suggested declaring bankruptcy and I told them I was going to the police. My mom said not to do that because they wouldn't take it seriously. When I told her I was doing it anyway, she hinted that she might have to call DCFS on me. My 2-year-old burned themselves on a hot pen earlier this year, simple ER visit and was told accidents happen, he's fine, regarding an unsafe home. I think I'm still going to the police because declaring bankruptcy would make it impossible to buy a house. I just needed to vent and looking for any advice. Comments. Commenter 1. She stole $30K, potentially ruined your financial future for 7 years, threatened to put your child in a situation where they could be taken and put in foster care for a fucking pontoon boat. Commenter 2. OP, make sure you mention they are effectively trying to blackmail you into not reporting and have them add it to the police report. Get a copy of that police report and keep it near the door. If DCF gets called, allow them to check out your home and child and show them the police report. By reporting it first, you come out swinging and get the drop on them. Don't let their threats prevent you from getting your life in order. Commenter 3. 100% this. Had a family member threaten CPS on my and my wife. I called and reported the incident including the threat to police. Sure enough CPS shows up at my house, followed by a lawsuit to take my kids by my family member. Had one court case, CPS dropped their investigation and the family member got reamed in court for wasting resources and made to cover my legal fees. Update. I filed my police report the same day as my first post. The officer and I talked for probably 20 minutes and I printed out a statement from the bank. I spoke with a detective a couple days later for another 20 minutes. Fast forward about 2.5 weeks and my dad called saying my mom had been arrested. He said an officer and a detective showed up at their house asking to speak with her. When she went onto the porch, they grabbed her and arrested her. The detective, same one I talked to, explained they had a warrant. My mom has never been in trouble with the law in her life and she got arrested on a felony. They tried talking to her and she immediately requested a lawyer. They stopped asking questions but didn't let her see a lawyer right away. My dad was furious but the detective told him to have a lawyer go down to the county jail in the morning before she went to the judge. The next morning, apparently she and the lawyer talked and she was released in the afternoon with a new court date. About a week later, I get a call from DCFS requesting to meet with me about my son. I had nothing to hide so I agreed. We spoke for about half an hour at my apartment and I explained the situation. She seemed understanding and told me there are no obvious issues, she just had to follow up on a report. I will say if I'm ever in trouble, I'm hiring her lawyer. The case was dismissed at her next court date in late September. The detective called me the next day and explained the state attorney believed that they wouldn't be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt she intentionally stole my identity. He said he figured it was a BS reason because he had documents from the bank and loan company. He said the state attorney drops a lot of cases, even open and shut ones, especially when it's not violent and they have a hired attorney. She never made a statement other than her attorney telling the detective she didn't do it. He also said the loan company might go after my mom in a lawsuit. What brings me back here is that a couple weeks ago the account dropped from my credit. Even better though, I got a letter from DCFS yesterday saying the allegation against me was unfounded. I'm never talking to my piece of trash mom again. Thank you everyone who gave me advice and hope in my first post. It just sucks that she is probably going to end up with a free boat out of it, unless the loan company sues her, which I hope they do. Comments. Commenter 1. Send the loan company the address where the boat is kept, with a photo. Commenter 2. The problem is, they took out a personal loan, not a boat loan. In other words, they borrowed cash in her name and then bought the boat with cash, so the boat is not collateral for the loan. They might be able to sue the parents but they'd have to basically prove in civil court what the state's attorney would not bother prosecuting. Which would probably cost more than $30,000 in legal fees. Commenter 3. Personally, if my parents called DCFS on me for revenge, that would be the end of my relationship with them. Never to revived again. Commenter 4. I would never let them see the grandchildren. OP, freeze your children's credit too. Commenter 5. Is send them pictures though here's a picture of your grandchild that you'll never see again. I feel bad the poor kids lost a grandparent but they are not worthy. New update. I'm happy to say nothing else has popped up on my credit in the last 3 months. What I'm really happy to say is that the credit card company itself is suing my mom for almost $40,000 according to my aunt. I no longer talk to my mom by she messaged me on Facebook last week. She had the nerve to ask me to both ask the credit card company to drop the lawsuit and pay half of what they're asking for with the understanding that I'll be paid back at some point. Both of these with the veiled threat she will call DCFS again if I don't. No and no. She's seeing the consequences of her actions. Comments. Commenter 1. Keep the messages. Show them to the DCFS worker. Depending on jurisdiction, making false reports could be an offense. Commenter 2. Especially if she really said she would call DCFS again, then that's proof. The first call which opened an investigation was fraudulent and malicious. Even without her calling again, they could use that to go back and charge her on the initial call and double so if she did call again. Stories number 17. My 26F, BF, 28M, slammed on the brakes so hard that I was thrown into the locked seatbelt in response to me commenting on his driving. How to address. My 26F, BF, 28M, of 3.5 years and I were driving down a main road towards a red light. He was accelerating into the red light, so I said, "Why are you accelerating? It's red." In response to this comment, he slammed on the brakes so hard that the car screeched and I was thrown forward. The locked seatbelt caught me. I was not injured by this, but it did scare me. Afterwards, when I spoke to him about it, he said I made him really mad with my driving comment, especially since I had told him not to comment on my own driving the day before, and that we should agree not to comment on each other's driving. I don't think that's totally unreasonable, but I also don't think that his act of slamming on the brakes was appropriate. I am concerned that he thinks it was appropriate. How to address this with him. TLDR, I commented on my boyfriend's driving and, in response, he slammed on the brakes so hard that I was thrown forward into the locked seatbelt. How to address this with him. Edit, thanks to everyone for your comments. I don't think I can respond to all at this stage, but I'll try and answer some of the questions here. The car is my car, I own it but let him drive it. I usually push back on letting drive it at all when I am with him because I think he doesn't treat the car as well as I would like. The comments from him on my driving are about me driving too slowly, hesitating. I was in a scary car accident a few years ago and I've been a very nervous and careful driver since then. I had asked him to stop commenting on my driving because I felt like he was nagging me all day about it. The specific instance where I said to stop was because I was hesitating at a traffic circle and was giving too much space for people to go through ahead of me. The comment that caused him to hit the brakes was my first comment of the car ride. We had literally just gotten in the car and it was the first light. Still, we had had some tension arguments that week leading up to it about other things and I think he was a little annoyed with me already when we got in the car. I won't pretend that I have not made him mad and could have tried harder to avoid that, but I felt that the reaction in slamming the brakes was very extreme. I hear what you all are saying. This confirms what I think I already knew the brake slamming was about. It's hard to imagine a situation where that can be seen as reasonable or safe. He has never done anything else physical with me aside from this car incident, though he does have an explosive temper. I've seen him get physical with other things. He's punched a hole in our wall once over a video game and he smacks cars when we are out running and he sees cars not stop properly at stoplights. I would say he hasn't lost his temper with me much, but when he has I found a bit freaky because he adopts a really intense, teeth clenched, fists clenched sort of thing. He's slammed a fist on the table a few times. Again, never has actually done anything physical. Also, to clarify, he was not slamming on the brakes because of the red light, we were still 50-ish feet from the line where you stop for the light. It was definitely in response to my comment, and he said it was afterwards when he explained that he slammed on the brakes because he was mad. I will look into the resources everyone sent and think about this. I am feeling like I need to end it, particularly after reading what everyone has said. Thank you, I appreciate all your thoughts and advice. Edit 2, for the people commenting with generalized, typical women, grievances, it is misogynistic to make generalizations about all women based on one woman's experience. Comments. Commenter 1. Dating is an audition for the rest of your life, you're not locked in here. He proved that his immediate and thoughtless reaction when he's angry with you is to punish you, and who cares if you get hurt. Take this information and use it wisely. Commenter 2. And if your car got rear-ended because of his actions, it's your problem, not his. Commenter 3. His immediate response to a criticism from you was to physically punish you. He did it deliberately, and would do it again. He doesn't see that there's anything wrong with his reaction. Think long and hard about if this is the sort of relationship you want to be in, because you can't change him. He would rather put your life at risk than be wrong. Commenter 4. My abuser did this regularly. Please note it won't be the last time and will probably escalate. This is punishing you with fear and making you unsafe. Update. Thank you to everyone who commented. It was a little rough being told by literally hundreds of people how bad of a situation this was. I think it was the wake-up call I needed, though. I was having a really hard time seeing the situation clearly. I knew his behavior was wrong, but I didn't have the language for what I was experiencing and didn't know what to do. Well, since this post, I filled in some friends and relatives on the situation. Everyone agreed that his behavior was completely unacceptable. Everyone said he either needed some serious therapy in anger management, or we needed to break up. Well, on Friday, I tried to ask him about the anger issues to see if he may be willing to seek help for it. He was extremely dismissive of it all, told me I was blowing things out of proportion, and even laughed at me when I suggested his aggression was a little scary. That was the last straw for me. Last night, I told him I thought we should break up. What followed was an agonizing and painful 2 hours of crying and holding each other. He pleaded with me to stay, promised that he would be better for me, asked to do therapy, basically, everything I had been wanting to hear from him for months, if not years. I couldn't trust it, though. I ended up taking my dog and going to a hotel, where I'll be for a few days while we think about logistics of breaking up. It has been so incredibly hard, but I am feeling like I made the right decision. Several people expressed concern for me in my original post, so I wanted to update you all and let you know that I am okay and that I left. I'm not able to completely go no contact currently because of our shared living situation and dog, but I am taking steps to break away. Thank you again to everyone for the feedback and affirmation. Comments. Commenter 1. He was only willing to change after you broke up with him. If you had stayed he would have been a little bit better for a little while and then gone back to the way he was. You made the right choice. Commenter 2. She literally asked him without any strings attached and he laughed at her. That was his authentic reaction, and if he had put in 1 to 2 months of effort if she stayed, he would have reverted back to his authentic self. If someone doesn't want to change, they won't. Commenter 3. I hope you've got your important documents with you. Everything else may need to be written off as a loss. At the very least, see if you can get your friends to accompany you to collect the rest of your stuff, or even handle the handoff for you, or consider calling the non-emergency police hotline to see if someone can come with you. Glad you're out, though. Now stay that way. Reply, thank you. I did grab my documents. I do hope things will be okay when I go back, but better to be safe for sure. Edit, go back to sort out our shared things. I will reach out to friends to come with me. Stories number 18. Wibta for exposing my abusive stepdad. I really need an outside perspective on whether I'd be the AH in this situation. I'm a 21-year-old male. I ended up in foster care at 9 years old because of the abuse I suffered at the hands of my stepfather, a man my mum kept choosing over me. Despite all the support and interventions that were supposed to protect me, my mum refused to kick him out. Even after she had a restraining order against him, she still let him back into our lives. Meanwhile, she went on to have 2 more children with this man, my half-brothers, who are now 19, Richie, and 16, James. It got to the point where it was obvious that no matter what she would keep letting him back into our lives and allowing me to be his scapegoat of anything that was wrong in life, and I ended up being removed. After I was removed from the home, my mum was allowed to keep and raise my brothers, as if nothing had happened. From what I know, my stepdad never laid a hand on them. My mum and this man are still together, I know because I've checked her Facebook more times than I'd like to admit. Growing up, it was devastating to realize that my mum would rather give me up than fight for me. She could have kept me if she'd just left him, but she didn't. This abandonment left me with deep scars and a lot of issues to deal with as I grew up. It didn't help that she cut off all contact with me almost as soon as I was placed in foster care. She wouldn't even show up for court-ordered visits. Foster care was also really rough for me. I bounced around 3 different families, and it wasn't until the last one that I got any therapy to help me make sense of what had happened. A few days ago, out of nowhere, I got a Facebook message from my Richie and James. They said they've been thinking about me a lot and want to get to know me. They even mentioned that our mum talks about me sometimes and wonders how I'm doing. They said he'd like to start some kind of relationship if I'm open to it. And Richie said he would be willing to drive him and James to come and visit me wherever I am in the country. They both seemed nice in this message, and I don't have an issue with either of them. At first, I was going to ignore the message because I don't want anything to do with my biological family. But then a darker thought crossed my mind: this could be my one and only chance to expose my stepdad for the monster he truly is. I could finally tell my half-brothers everything he did to me, everything he put me through, and let the truth come crashing down on them. I know that if I do this, it'll probably destroy any chance of having a relationship with them, but honestly, I'm not sure I want one anyway. I told my friend that I was thinking about doing this and he said it's a really bad idea that won't accomplish anything I wanted to. He said it will most likely just cause them to think I'm bitter and mean and won't make them have any issues with their dad. But, well, I know it would be a difficult thing to process. I would want to know if my dad was like that. I would want to know the truth about how my dad treated other children. I don't know how much they know about why I was removed into care. So, would I be the arsehole if I went through with it? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Not wrong. What happened to you is terrible. There's a good chance you'd be talking about what happened to you anyway, since they want to get to know you. But they are not to blame for what their dad and your mother put you through. So if they ask, then ask them if they really want to know the truth of what happened. If they say yes, there's your permission. Commenter 2. If the sole reason you want to get in contact with them is to cause issues between them and their brother, then yes, maybe you are wrong. But if you want a relationship with them and the topic comes up, you equally shouldn't have to censor yourself or tell any lies about their father. Commenter 3. Not passing judgment, but your stepdad and their dad are different people. What do you gain by ruining their image of their dad? Would you be happy if they end up hating their dad and no longer have a relationship with him? Would it make you feel good to strip your brothers of their dad? Because honestly, I don't see a reason for you to poison the well unless that's your endgame, and that would make you TA. I have a half-sister. Our dad was awful for me. He was horrifically abusive to my mom and abandoned us after never paying child support. He would love bomb and then disappear over and over. If I was unhappy, it was always my fault. My half-sister grew up with a loving and attentive dad. They're super close and she loves him dearly. She knows that our dad and I have a more difficult past, but I never try to damage her relationship with him. I'm happy she has a dad that is good to her. What would I gain from hurting their relationship? I would hurt her, and he genuinely is a different person as I'm significantly older than her and he has matured in that time. I'm not saying that's the case with your stepdad, but I would never hurt my half-sister because of my childhood pain. Update, WIBW for exposing my stepdad to his children. Hey everyone, I wanted to come back and give you all an update. First off, thanks for all the advice and different perspectives. I really needed to hear them. So, after thinking a lot about what everyone said and after having a session with my therapist, I realized that my initial plan to tell my brothers everything about my stepdad wasn't really about helping them. It was more about me still holding on to the anger and hurt from my past, and that's not fair to them. A lot of you pointed out that they probably don't know the full story and are innocent in all this. And honestly, that hit hard. I decided to reach out to my Richie brother and told him I'd like to meet up. I didn't mention anything about our mom or the stepdad situation. I figured if we were going to start a relationship, it's better to take things slow and not dump all that heavy stuff on them right away. We ended up meeting at a cafe. I was super nervous, but when I saw them, it actually felt nice. They were both really nice, and we just talked about normal stuff, like what we've been up to, our favorite football teams, that sort of thing. It was weirdly easy to chat with them. At one point, the James asked why I was placed in foster care. That caught me off guard, but I decided to keep it vague and just said that things were complicated at home back then, and that going into care was what was best for me at the time. James started pushing a bit for more details, but the Richie told him to knock it off, which honestly was a relief. By the end of it, I was glad I went. They asked if we could stay in touch, and I said yes. I'm still figuring out how much to share about what happened, but for now, I'm just trying to focus on building a relationship with them. I realized that while the past is important, it doesn't have to dictate how things go with them now. So yeah, thanks again to everyone who helped me see things clearer. I'm feeling a lot more hopeful about this, and I'm really glad I didn't just go with my gut reaction to tell them everything right off the bat. We'll see where things go from here, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't know if anyone cares about this, but I just thought I would give a little update. Before anything, I read a lot of your comments. So many were saying I was selfish for wanting to expose my stepdad, and then so many were saying I was a coward for not. Some people were saying I was allowing the abuser to get away with it by not telling my brothers. I had DMs calling me an abuse apologist. People calling me a liar for not answering the question James asked when we first met. I never said I wasn't ever going to talk to them about my past. Literally in my last post I said I was still working on sharing my past in a healthy way, with help from my therapist, and yet I had people acting like they knew best and that I should just tell them both right away. So many people arguing about it one way or the other. It does seem like everything I do there will be issues, I will upset someone. I know that and I am trying to navigate this in my own way, so please be respectful of that. Even if you would have done it a different way. I am in no way letting SD get away with the abuse. I tried everything I could as a child/teen to get him prosecuted. I have accepted that will never happen. Just know I am a real person who reads the comments. Not everything I do is perfect. But please just be kind. I don't say this to stop people from giving me advice. I love advice. Just be positive and kind. I don't need more negativity. Anyway, in the week since my last post I have met up with my brothers 3 more times. Once with both, and 2 times it has been just me and Richie. There seems to have been an instant bond between us, something that I didn't even know I wanted. I am loving hanging out with them, which is amazing because I didn't even think I ever wanted to see any of my family again. Never mind start to develop a good relationship with some of them. When I last met up with Richie alone we went to go see a movie and then get something to eat. We spoke about our plans and what he does now. And we got talking about me, and foster care. I asked him what he had been told about me growing up. He said they haven't been told much, but that mum sometimes talks about me. I asked him what he remembered of me and why I was taken into care. He said he has some memories, fuzzy memories and clear memories. But he said he didn't know for certain what happened. He said he remembered a lot of fighting and arguing between me and SD. He said he had one very clear memory of me, but said he didn't know whether it was appropriate for him to share it or not. He asked me what I remembered, and I said it was difficult for me to talk about with people. He said he understood if I didn't want to get into it. I asked him what his clear memory was. He remembered me being about 8 years old, my SD stripping me naked and putting me in a dog's collar and making me eat dog food. He said he remembered his dad hitting me with his belt as I was eating out the dog bowl and crying. This actually happened many times for me growing up, but he said he only remembered it once. I started crying and he apologized for bringing it up, and I said don't. I was glad he at least remembered some things of my abuse. He said he guessed that the abuse by SD was the reason I was taken away. I said yeah. I asked if SD ever abused either of them and he said he hadn't ever. But he said he wasn't close to either my mom or his dad. He said they weren't ever amazingly loving people, but never abused them. He said he was sorry again. We spoke some more about our childhood. I felt safer talking about the abuse since he already remembered some of it. We spoke a bit more about it. I tried answering questions he had and he answered some of mine. He asked if the trauma still impacts me now, and I said yeah. I was open with him that I've attempted to end my own life multiple times because of it. He apologized for not being there for me, for not sticking up for me. I said nothing that happened was his fault, or my fault, and that we can't change the past. After we finished, we both went to our own homes. He messaged me saying he's glad I grew up and that I managed to keep living. He meant it sweetly, I think, even though it came off a little weird. I feel really amazing that I have a brother who seems to care about me. I couldn't even have imagined he would have liked me a few weeks ago. Update. Hey everyone, it's been 16 days since my last update, and I wanted to fill you in on how things have been going. I'm still working on building a relationship with my brothers, but it's been more complicated than I anticipated. While things started off surprisingly well, it's clear now that we're all navigating different versions of our shared past. After Richie opened up about his memory of the abuse, we've had more conversations about what I went through. I didn't want to keep tiptoeing around the subject, so I decided to share a little more, but I've been careful not to overwhelm them. James, though, has been acting a bit distant since then. I can't help but wonder if maybe he's struggling to process everything. I wouldn't blame him, it's a lot to take in, especially for someone who had no idea what was really going on back then. And I didn't even really tell him what happened, just that I was abused by his dad when I was young and that's what caused me to go into foster care, and I only told him that much after he asked me again. Richie has been supportive, but I think even he's starting to feel the weight of it all. We had a pretty intense conversation a few days ago where he admitted that he's feeling conflicted. On one hand, he loves his dad, but on the other, he now knows what a monster he was to me. It's like he's torn between two realities, the dad he grew up with, who was far from perfect but never abusive to him, and the man who made my life hell. He hasn't said it directly, but I think part of him feels guilty for not experiencing the same horrors I did. I think he feels like I got it so he and James didn't. I keep reminding him it's not his fault, but I can tell it's weighing on him. Richie has been hanging out with me like 3 times a week though, and we have a good time together when we do hang out. As for James, he's been pulling away. I tried reaching out to see if he wanted to meet up, but he keeps making excuses. I get it, I probably dropped a lot on him. I've decided to give him some space and not push too hard. I've learned that everyone processes trauma and difficult truths in their own way, and maybe he needs time to wrap his head around everything. Despite all of this, I've started to feel a bit lighter. Sharing my story, even if it's just pieces of it, has been hard, but it's also been freeing. I spent so many years carrying this alone, and while I'm still cautious about how much I share, I'm beginning to realize that I deserve to be heard too. I'm continuing therapy, and my therapist has been amazing at helping me figure out how to balance opening up with protecting myself. One thing I didn't expect was for my mum to reach out. She sent me a message on Facebook a few days ago, saying she wanted to talk about the past and that she misses me. It was the first time in years I've heard from her directly, and honestly, I'm torn about what to do. Part of me is still angry, furious, even, that she let all of this happen. But another part of me is curious. I don't know if she's finally seeing things clearly or if she just wants to smooth things over without actually addressing what happened. I haven't responded yet, and I'm not sure if I will. It's hard to know if she's changed or if it's just too little, too late. For now, I'm focused on my relationship with Richie and James. I'm hopeful that with time, James will come around and we can all find some peace with the past. But I'm also learning that not everything can be fixed, and that's okay. Some things, you just have to learn to live with. Thanks again for all the support. It's been really helpful to read through your comments and know that I'm not alone in this journey. Update, WIBW for exposing my stepdad to his children. Hey everyone, I wanted to hop on and give a little update. First I wanted to say thank you to everyone who reached out and sent love. I really appreciate all the messages. So I felt really conflicted after my mum asked to meet me up. I really hadn't had much contact with her since I was removed. After really considering it and after reading the messages I got from you guys, I decided it was probably best to not respond to my mum. I decided not to meet up with her and just ignored her completely, as I think even messaging her would make my mental health spiral. It wasn't long after that James asked if I could meet up with him. Which I was happy about because I felt like he had been avoiding me since I revealed everything about what his dad and our mum did to me. Richie couldn't come even though I invited him. So it was just me and James. We went to the cinema. And we were having a good time, when he started talking about our mum and how much she wanted to meet me. I told him I just wasn't ready now, and wasn't sure if I'd ever be ready to meet her again. He started saying how it's selfish of me to not at least talk to her. And I tried to reiterate that I wasn't ready to talk to her and how what she did to me has caused so much pain and damage to me. He started to say something like, she's not the same person anymore, or something, but I cut him off. I tried to shut it down there and said I don't want to discuss it further, and if he was going to keep bringing it up I would just drop him back off at the train station. He called me a dickhead and told me to just drop him off, so I did that. And not long after that he blocked me on everything. Which I admit I was really upset about. Richie called me and told me that James was upset and had been speaking about me being selfish in the house. And Richie said that it was probably best for me and Richie to go low contact for a while, even though he said he supports me. He said he has to try and navigate it through his home life until he is able to move out and be independent. I understand that, even though it made me really sad. That happened about 2 weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything from any of them since then. Even though I've been sending memes to Richie on Instagram every other day or so. We had been sending each other memes constantly before and he hasn't even opened the messages. So honestly I don't know where to go from here. I feel pretty disappointed by everything. I don't know if this is the right place to ask for advice, but if anyone does have some advice on what to do. Update, WIBTA for exposing my abusive stepdad. I deleted my last account because I was going into a very dark place, but I have proof that I am the OP if anyone wants it. It's been about 4 months since I last posted on Reddit. I left things in a really bad place. Shortly after my last update, I attempted to take my own life. That wasn't the first time, but I truly thought I was past that. I've recovered, and I'm so glad my attempt failed. My God, if anyone reading this has even the slightest thought like that, please speak to someone. You are worth it. The world is better with you in it. I said this somewhere on my last account, but before Richie and James came into my life, I never wanted a family. I never craved it, never needed it. But after they did and then left, all I could think about was how I'd screwed everything up again. I hated myself for it. I tore myself apart over how I ruined everything, but now, in a better place, I can see I did nothing wrong. At the time, though, it didn't feel that way. Just over 6 weeks ago, Richie reached out to me again. He said things had settled at home, and he was hoping we could start again. I told him, politely, because I really don't blame him, that unless he was ready for a full relationship with me, I couldn't do it. I couldn't live through another breakup. I know that's not the right word, but I just can't think of a better one. I said if he wasn't ready, I wouldn't hold it against him, but I couldn't be put through this again. He told me he was ready, and he promised me that if he had to make a choice, he'd choose me over them. I asked him about finances and how he'd manage, but he said he had it sorted. At the time, I didn't realize, but later I found out that Richie and James' paternal grandfather had passed away and left them both a substantial amount of money. So we started again, and it felt like no time had passed between us at all. He told me that I was all anyone spoke about in the house for about 2 weeks after everything fell apart. How I was selfish, and mean, and evil. How my mom had posted rant after rant about me on Facebook, wondering how she raised such a selfish, evil person. I didn't know, because I haven't checked her Facebook in a while, although I used to obsessively. If I had the energy for it, I'd go on and comment something like, "You didn't raise such a selfish, evil person because I was removed into foster care because of the abuse you and SD put me through." Mother of the Year. But honestly, I don't think I could cope with the fallout of it. Anyway, Richie said he wasn't going to tell his parents about getting back in contact with me. He said he wanted to move out and then go NC with them to support me. I told him I didn't care if he told them or not, or if he cut them off or not. That was his choice. The only thing I needed from him was consistency, either he was in my life, or he wasn't. No more back and forth. Since then, things with Richie have been going really well. Better than I ever expected, honestly. He's starting to feel like my best friend, which is something I never thought I'd say about a family member. We see each other all the time, and it just feels right. Like I finally have someone who understands me and actually wants to be in my life without conditions. I don't think I realized how much I was missing that until I had it. For a while, Richie kept our contact a secret. He hadn't told anyone at home that we were talking again, and I was fine with that. It wasn't about hiding, it was just easier for him. But somehow, James found out, and it caused a lot of issues for Richie back at home. From what Richie told me, James wasn't happy about it at all. I don't know exactly what was said, but it was enough that Richie decided to speed up his timeline to move out. He was planning on waiting a bit longer, but with all the tension at home, he just wanted out as soon as possible. James still hasn't reached out to me, and honestly, I don't expect him to. I've made my peace with that. I hope that one day, he'll be able to see past the loyalty he has for our parents and realize that I'm not the evil person they've made me out to be. But I also know that he might never get there, and that's something I can't control. People believe what they want to believe, and right now, he's not ready to see the truth. Maybe he never will be. The good thing is, despite James' reaction, no one has actually tried to stop Richie from seeing me. That, at least, is something. Most importantly, I'm feeling so much better about life again. After everything, I'm finally starting to believe that I deserve to be happy. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful. Stories number 19. Aita for not leaving my own birthday party to drive my best friend home. I, 26F, have been best friends with Jake, 27M, for over 6 years. We work at the same company and are also planning to go on a work and travel trip together soon. This situation happened last Friday, which was my birthday. I had planned a big family gathering with over 20 guests, some of whom traveled over an hour to be there. Jake was invited, and he told me he would come. The night before, we went grocery shopping together, but while sitting in the car, he suddenly told me last minute that he wouldn't be attending because he picked up an extra shift at work. I was a little hurt because we always celebrate our birthdays together, and he didn't need to take the shift. Our company has plenty of people who could have covered it. But I accepted it and moved on. On my birthday, we were texting before his shift. For context, Jake doesn't have a driver's license and usually relies on public transport or walks. I do have a license, but I don't own a car. I use my mother's when I need it. That afternoon, he mentioned that he would have to walk home because public transport stops running at a certain time, something he already knew when he took the shift. He also told me he was feeling a bit sick and asked if I could pick him up and drive him home. Our boss even told him he could leave 2 hours early to catch the last bus if he needed to, but he chose not to. I told him I couldn't leave my own birthday party just to pick him up and drive him home. I had guests over, food and drinks to serve, and I felt it would be rude to leave when people had put in time and effort to celebrate with me. He replied, "Can't you just leave for 5 minutes and drive me home?" I explained that it wasn't just a 5-minute trip, I would be gone for at least 30 minutes in total. He replied with a dismissive, "Okay." Later, I checked Find My to make sure he got home safely and texted him, apologizing that I couldn't drive him, reminding him that I normally do, but I really couldn't leave my own party. That's when he got angry and told me my behavior was unacceptable and that I was just making excuses. For further context, I do drive him home fairly often, even when I'm not working the same shift as him. But this time, I had a prior commitment, one that he was originally supposed to attend. I reminded him again that our boss had told him he could leave early to catch the bus. At this point, he started arguing that the town is dangerous at night, but we've both lived here our entire lives, and nothing has ever happened to us. I used to walk at night all the time before I had a license, and another friend of ours, who is also a coworker, regularly walks home late at night without issue. I tried to understand if something else was going on and asked him if maybe he was upset about something deeper and just projecting it onto this situation. I might have worded it poorly, but instead of talking, he just exploded at me. I apologized if I said it the wrong way, but at that point, he wasn't listening to me at all. Meanwhile, he wasn't trying to understand my side either. I told him it was my responsibility to be at my own birthday party, and that my guests had made an effort to celebrate with me. I couldn't just disappear for half an hour. He dismissed that and told me I was a bad friend, a bad sister, because I said I wouldn't drive my sister home either if I had prior commitments and it wasn't an emergency, and that my priorities were all wrong. In the end, he told me he didn't want to see me for a while. I am honestly confused and questioning our friendship after this because of how he reacted. I really tried to understand his side, and I get that he was hurt that I wasn't there for him when he needed me. But at the same time, I couldn't just leave my own party if it wasn't an emergency. Now I don't know if our friendship can bounce back from this or how I'm supposed to rely on him moving forward. If this is how he reacts to something like this, what happens if we end up in a similar situation while traveling? Is he just going to leave me behind if I don't do what he wants? For the context, him feeling sick was related to a sore throat, so nothing that would be classified as an emergency. Fake names for privacy. So, Aita for refusing to leave my own birthday party to drive him home. Consensus, not the asshole, even though it's not an Aita sub. Update. I know this is an early update because my post is just a few hours old, but I thought I will compress more information and some things that happened in the last few hours into an update. First of all, thank you all for the helpful comments. I never expected so many people to relate to this. I'm so sorry for everyone who has gone through something similar. To clarify something I've seen speculated in the comments, there are no romantic feelings involved. He's gay, so there was never any romantic interest between us. After reading a lot of comments and reflecting on everything, I've decided to go no contact, aside from necessary work-related interactions. I've also made the decision to go forward with my work and travel plans alone because I simply can't trust someone like this to be my emergency contact in another country. I had a long conversation with my parents and showed them the chat. My mom actually broke down crying. She told me she's seen narcissistic behavior and red flags in him for years, but things have gotten worse in the last few months. She said this has been weighing on her, and when she laid everything out for me, I finally saw the bigger picture. Even though it wasn't a romantic relationship, I now realize he was isolating me from other friends and family, always trying to make himself the center of my social life. He even tried to insert himself into most of my other friendships, and looking back, any time I made progress in life, he would find a way to hold me back or drag me down. My dad told me that some of the recent arguments I've had with my family were actually their way of trying to get me to see what was happening, but I just didn't recognize it until now. He also said he's relieved I won't be traveling overseas with him. My parents reassured me that while this will be hard at first, I'll heal, and cutting ties now will make things easier in the long run. They also pointed out things I had overlooked, like how he tagged along on family holidays without paying but was never particularly grateful to my family for inviting him. I've started talking to one of our mutual friends about what happened. She's currently busy with the Super Bowl, but once she's back, I'll tell her everything as objectively as possible. I don't want to trash talk him or damage his reputation at work, but if coworkers ask, I'll be honest about why I've distanced myself. I genuinely do wish him the best, and I hope he works through his issues and finds happiness. But I'm done. My mom breaking down in tears was the final straw for me. Even though a lot of my social circle overlaps with him, I know I'll eventually sort everything out and move on. It honestly feels like a friendship divorce, but I think this is a necessary step. I need to reevaluate who my real friends are and how they treat me, and I might need to cut ties with a few other people along the way. I actually texted one of my close friends joking that we're getting a divorce and that I'm filing for custody of her. I really hope she won't be manipulated by him, but right now, I need to be prepared for anything. This won't be easy, but I'll cut my losses and move forward, hopefully toward a better future, with better friends, ones I can truly trust and who put just as much effort into our friendship as I do. Stories number 20. I 35M cheated on my wife 36F. She left without telling me anything. How can I get her back? I know, I'm aware of my faults, I know I screwed up. She and I had something beautiful. She is still the love of my life. We were together for 10 years, 2 dating and 8 married, but I made a huge mistake and cheated on her. It was just once, just one damn time. Somehow she found out, I never knew how because I haven't been able to talk to her since then. I guess she found something on my phone. I came home that afternoon as usual and everything felt weird, the house felt emptier. I quickly realized that her things were gone. I panicked, I started calling her over and over, but her phone didn't even ring. Suddenly I saw some papers on the table. She was divorcing me. Under the divorce papers, there was a note that said, "This is what you do with cheaters." That was the last thing I got from her, 2 years ago now. Of course I called the contact information for her lawyer, who has been the only bridge between us. But he just told me that he was her legal representative and that she didn't want to see me. I fought, I got angry, but in the end her lawyer just told me that it would be better if I got my own lawyer. I didn't want to, I absolutely refused to accept that 10 years of relationship would end like this. I know I have failed, but I always wanted to fix it. I know that if she gave me the chance, I could make that sweet and special girl I met more than 10 years ago fall in love with me again. I know that I can make her forgive me. After all, many couples go through similar things and get over it. Why can't we be one more couple in that statistic? Why after 8 years of marriage am I thrown away like garbage for a mistake? I don't deserve so much indifference. I haven't been able to see her or even hear her voice in 2 years. 2 years of not being able to see or talk to the person you love the most is too much of a punishment. This situation has destroyed me emotionally, mentally, and even physically. I ended up consuming an unhealthy amount of alcohol, weeks of barely eating, not sleeping. I was a zombie for months. I was just functioning on automatic. I wanted to die, but I couldn't let myself die because I always held on to hope that she would come back. My therapist says it's really hard when you can't get closure from a relationship because your mind can't process that the relationship is over, so you're always thinking that person will knock on the door or that you'll wake up from sleep and they'll be there by your side. The divorce was finalized over a year ago. I'll be honest, I didn't make it easy. I didn't want to get divorced and I still don't understand how we can be divorced. I asked for couples therapy, but she refused. I know from my lawyer that her lawyer advised her to go at least once or twice. But she refused. It took quite a while, but finally the divorce happened. I can't even describe the feeling I felt and still feel, like if a piece of me had been cut out. I know I hurt her, I know I failed, but I think we all deserve a second chance. When I couldn't take the pain anymore, I decided to start therapy. My therapist doesn't give me advice to get her back, he only focuses on me moving on with my life, encouraging me to meet new people and go out on dates, but I don't want to. At this point I'm not even interested in sex anymore. A few days ago something happened that completely shattered me. I was having a few beers with my friend at my house, let's call him Nick. We were both pretty drunk. I started talking about my wife. And he said to me, you should put more effort into getting over her, she's over you and is happy having a life away from you, you should do the same, you can't live in this self-pity all your life. Something in his words hit me, but not in the way he expected. He spoke with a lot of confidence that my wife is over me and is happy now. How does he know that? At this point, I got angry and started pressuring him to talk. He refused. I pressed as hard as I could, I cried, I begged him to tell me if he knew something. I needed to know something about her. Until he finally told me, his wife has been in contact with my wife for the last year. They were great friends and I remember Sabrina, my friend's wife, being very sad about losing contact with my wife. The thing is that my wife went to live in Norway, got married to a guy there and is about 7 months pregnant. I felt like dying, I literally felt like dying with this information. How could she do this to me? How could it be that while I was crying, getting drunk, missing her and wanting to die every day, she was happily on the other side of the world, getting married, fucking and getting pregnant by another guy? How could it be that she didn't have a child with me in many years, to the point that I thought she was infertile, but she got pregnant by this new guy so easily? Where did this guy come from? I have no answers for absolutely anything and I feel like I can't go on with my life without these answers. The only thing I can think of is that she had revenge sex with the first Norwegian guy she came across and got pregnant and decided to keep the baby. Maybe she got married because she wanted to stay in that country legally and I guess like in most countries, getting married is a good option for that. I don't know, these thoughts are killing me. I refuse to think that she is in love with him. I need to contact her, I need to talk to her, I need to know what's going on, because she acts like our 10-year history and 8-year marriage is nothing to her. I need advice on how to act. I feel the impulse of travel to where she is and look for her, but how could I do that? I don't know what city she's in, I don't know where she lives, I don't have a number to contact her, she closed her social media, her family is small, they don't live in the same country as me and all of them blocked me. I'm totally lost. I don't know what to do at this point. I still want her back, yes, even pregnant. I feel like if this is a nightmare and I need to wake up now. Edit. I read almost all the comments and when I say almost all I really mean almost all. It's hard to process all the crap that's been said about me. I feel like you guys forget that you are talking to a person and not an inanimate object. I thought I might find more empathy by sharing my story here. Just 2 people feeling empathy towards me and their comment made me feel better. I'm not looking for validation or for anyone to say that what I did is okay. I know it's not and I have to live with that daily. I will try to respond but of course I'll never be able to respond all the comments over here. I guess none of you know what it's like to have a broken heart and not be able to get over a person. You don't decide who you love and you don't decide when you get over someone. It will happens when it have to. Those who doubt my story, unfortunately is real. I would love this to be fake but sadly it is not and I have to live with this mess every day. Maybe she got married because she got pregnant and felt alone in a country where she has no one and she just hold on to the other guy. Of course I blame myself for this. This wouldn't have happened if I had been a better person and a better husband to her. But unfortunately I can't change what I did wrong. The only thing I could do is try to make it up to her, but how do you make it up to someone who doesn't want to give you the chance to do so? Some people said that she doesn't owe me a second chance. That was hard to read, but I understand that maybe she doesn't have to. I never openly blamed her for the infertility issues. It was just a thought. We both went to the doctor and in both cases the tests revealed that everything was fine. I never understood why we couldn't conceive, and the thought that she was infertile did cross my mind, and of course the idea that I was too. But in most cases of infertility it is due to a female factor. Maybe that's why I thought that. Horrible things were said, like I would hurt my ex-wife if she were here. I never physically hurt her and I never will. I am not an abusive person. I am not a monster. I know it's hard to empathize with me. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt her way beyond what I can say. But I am not a monster or a narcissist. Some people said that I never loved her, otherwise I wouldn't have cheated on her. This statement doesn't seem fair to me. You think you can kidnap the concept of love and tell another person what his real feelings are? You think you are inside my head or heart? Only then would you know what I feel. You can't tell me that I don't love her. There hasn't been a day since she left that I don't regret it. No one can tell me this isn't love. Lastly, humans are more complex than most people here think. Just because I cheated on her doesn't mean I don't love her or that I don't have feelings. I called what I did a mistake because how else would I call it? I thought part of accepting blame is accepting that was my mistake, but everyone here take those words as if I trying to twist the situation when that's not the case. You've completely twisted my words. I know how much I hurt her. Maybe in my post I'm focusing on myself because I was never able to explain myself to her. Since then for me it's been one attempt after another to put together a story in my head that doesn't make sense. I lost everything from one moment to the next. I simply try to be open with my feelings, but it doesn't seem to work here. Not for me at least. I know the damage I did to her. This woman left her life, the country she emigrated to, her friends, even her job. No one does that for a breakup unless you're going through some level of absolute pain. I understand that. I can see and feel the pain I put her through, and that makes me feel even more guilty. Honestly, I'm going to respond to some comments below and then log off of Reddit for a couple days until I feel in a better place. Relevant comments. Commenter: I want to know who you cheated on her with. That's pretty important information. Reply: it was a radon woman that used to go to the same gym. Nothing important. It didn't mean anything, not even for a second. I just was being an idiot. Commenter: you don't seem to have any remorse for cheating, just mention she somehow found out so you were not planning on telling her. It's been 2 years, you need to accept responsibility for your actions and let go. She's never coming back. There's billions of people out there, just heal and improve yourself with therapy and I'm sure you'll get a second chance with someone else. You're only 35. Reply: I do feel remorse for cheating. I'm a big mess right now, but I do feel remorse. Commenter: you may still be in love, she is not, at least not with you. Reply: so love just fade away. Just like this. At the end of the day this sometimes makes me feel like if I'm actually more loyal than her to our relationship, meaning, she left, remarried, got pregnant, looks like if she completely forgot about me and I'm here sitting crying while I drink some wine and respond to some strangers on Reddit about our relationship. I still love her, but for her was so easy girl over me. Commenter: if only half the people on Reddit had the self-respect your ex-wife has. Reply: I don't blame her, I understand the pain I caused her. But I also think there are many couples who go through this and move on, especially when it was just one time. I never had a side relationship for months, I didn't cheat on her with multiple women, I didn't get another woman pregnant, I didn't cheat on her with her friend. Cheating is wrong, but are you really going to put me on the same level as a guy who cheated on his wife for years or who cheated on his wife with her sister? It's not an excuse, but I'm asking for some coherency here. Update: these days have been very strange, at times I feel numb and at others desperate. A lot of things have happened. I want to start by answering something and then I will update. Some people asked why Norway. I don't know exactly, but she is a polyglot, she speaks 6 languages. Many of these languages are connected to cultures that she always liked. Norwegian is just one of them. She has always been interested in Norwegian culture, she has been there before, but she is also interested in other cultures and speaks other languages, so for me that was never an indicator that she might have gone to this country. Regarding the update, the first thing I will say is that the post reached some people in my circle. Sabrina's sister is on Reddit, she knows the story and realized it was me. She told Sabrina. Sabrina is angry at Nick for revealing information, Nick is angry at me for posting on Reddit and because he says I pressured him to talk. I am angry at both of them for being 2 holes who watched me suffer for 2 years and decided not to help me. They didn't care about my marriage, why should I care about their marriage? Sabrina could have given me my ex-wife phone number a long time ago, but she decided to prioritize her friendship with my ex instead of helping 2 friends mend their marriage. Meanwhile, no one cared about my feelings. I'm done with them at this point. Regarding to my ex-wife, I've been thinking a lot, she can't just disappear. I convinced myself that if I searched hard enough I could find something related to her. I follow some of her relatives from a fake Instagram account but I never found anything related to her. I searched a lot, really a lot, and found a name that I had seen before but that hadn't caught my attention until then. It was a lady with a name that is not typical in the United States or my wife's country, she is not American, and a very strange last name. I went to her Instagram profile and she had no pictures or anything, just a small profile picture that you can barely see. I decided to look her up on Facebook and found the same lady with the same profile picture. Only her Facebook profile is quite open, she is indeed a lady from Norway. I checked everything I could on this profile. I was convinced that it had something to do with my wife. How else would a relative of hers have this woman in their friends? I saw a lot of pictures, people, plants, mountains, gardens, lakes, flowers, typical things that an older lady posts, until I came across a picture where my ex was dressed as a bride hugging a guy. I had to translate the text. The lady was congratulating her son on his wedding. There were a few more pictures, not many, there were even some members of my ex's family in the wedding pictures. The dates of the pictures were from a year ago. A year ago she married this guy. I don't understand, how could it happen so fast? When did she meet him? I honestly thought she got married after she got pregnant, not before. This baffles me even more. After that I found another picture, it was a group picture and she was far away, but of course I recognized her. The same guy was with his hands on her shoulders, hugging her. This picture was from February 2023. To be clear, she left in May 2022, how is she with someone in February 2023? Only 9 months and she's already in a stable enough relationship that he's introduced her to his family. What the hell is going on here? I feel like I have even more questions in my head now. I know I shouldn't be upset but I am. I know I lost her because I was an idiot, but it's hard to get this feeling out of my head right now. Anyways, for those who had imagined this fantasy that my ex is with some kind of Norwegian Chris Hemsworth, let me tell you, it's not like that. This guy is too tall, too blonde, too pale, hair too long and kind of chunky to be honest. He looks more like the old cartoon of Vikings and is definitely not a Chris Hemsworth. I managed to find his FB profile but he has almost nothing there. His profile says he's an engineer. An engineer who wears metal band t-shirts at 38. I don't know how to take this because I'm an engineer myself, just in a different field. Why would she look for a man with the same profession as me? My wife has always liked heavy metal, which I always found nasty, but I never complained. After all, your partner doesn't have to have the same musical tastes as you. I mention this because maybe that was the way they connected. She used to connect easily with people who liked the same type of music. I don't know, but I honestly look at it and think, where did she get this guy from? I meant he can definitely do better than this. The pregnancy thing still messes with my head. I try not to think about it. I can't understand it. I'm not infertile like the comments suggest. I've been to the doctor and I know I'm not. But God, it kills me to think that she's going to have another man's child. I don't get it. I feel like this is beyond anything I ever imagined. And no, I'm not going to go to Norway. I'm not going to try to contact her. I still want to see her and talk to her. But I obviously can't force her to do that. I have too much to deal with right now and too much to talk about in therapy. If by any chance this post reaches my ex, I want you to know that I still love you. You know where to contact me. If by any chance this post reaches the new dude, I want you to know the only reason you have a chance with this woman is because a big idiot halfway across the world completely ruined it. You most probably met a woman who was probably very broken from her divorce. You took advantage of her situation and trapped her with a baby. You don't know how to play fair. Sabrina and Nick, fuck you. Stories number 21. My 34M wife, 33F, sat on the lap of another man, 40M. My wife of over 6 years, been together longer, just not married, sat on the lap of another man this past Sunday during a Super Bowl party we threw at our house. This man that I mention is actually a good friend of ours. He's no stranger. We've all known each other for many years due to him being the boyfriend of one of my wife's best friends, who was also present at the party. Now to play out the situation, what happened was we were all sitting outside watching the game when along comes my wife, who is fairly intoxicated at this point, and starts shooting the shit with us. She then without any reason proceeds to sit on the lap on our friend. It wasn't sexual by any means, but there were other seats available, so I was confused as to WTF was going on. Even without there being seats, I obviously would have had the same reaction. I couldn't really tell you how long time went by, but I audibly told her to sit down on the bench that was open next to him and asked what she was doing. I didn't make a thing of it, so nothing sparked out of the situation at that moment. That was until later that night when I confronted them both as he was leaving. I brought up to her in front of him how I thought that was very inappropriate, and as a married woman she shouldn't have done that. They both apologized and stated it's nothing like that, which I actually believe. I know it would never come down to it between them two like that, but the issue I had was just the inappropriate nature of it and how it makes me look as a husband and her a wife. Now here's when things kind of takes a turn. My wife then begins to twist the situation around and start saying how it's actually not that big of a deal and I'm just being insecure and more or less a little bitch. At this point things turned up and we got into it. She refused to acknowledge how I felt and claimed it didn't seem as bad as I made it and how she wouldn't care if her friend sat on my lap or how her friend doesn't mind it. I repeatedly told her I would never allow that because I'm a married man and that I couldn't care less if her friend doesn't mind such behavior. We went to bed with not much resolved. We spoke the following morning and she agreed that it was wrong and apologized again. Now here's the reason why I decided to bring this up here on the subreddit, which I wasn't planning to. We mildly spoke about it today and she brought up how she finally got around to speaking to her friend, whose boyfriend's lap she sat on, and apologized to her. She said how her friend said it was no big deal and they know it was never meant to be sexual. She then proceeded to tell me how I got her all flustered and made her thought she should have apologized to her friend like she did something really wrong. At this point I just sat there and stared at her briefly, thinking to myself, am I going crazy here? Am I truly the only one who doesn't see this as a problem? I let it go at that point, but I just can't shake off how I'm still feeling about it. I cannot be the only who deems this inappropriate, right? Stories number 22. I hate living with a man. He's disgusting. He never cleans anything. He doesn't wash properly. He tracks water from the shower all over the house as he walks around naked, for no reason. He makes obscene noises non-stop, he is so loud. Coughing, gagging, hacking on phlegm. Never covers his mouth. Listens to every video at full volume. Yes, even those videos. Always yelling across the house. Slams every door he walks through. Slams the drawers shut. Slams the cabinets. Leaves trash literally everywhere. Snot. So much snot. Poops with the door open, making way too much noise. And then won't clean the toilet afterwards. Or wash his hands. I'm so tired of living with a man. I cannot wait to move out of here. Wow, this blew up. I've never had a post get locked before. Stories number 23. Aita for getting my father's affair partner fired after exposing her affair and the fact she's an unmarried mother to the school she worked at. My mom and I found out in September that my father had been cheating on her for at least 5 years. How we know it was that long? He had 2 kids with her and the oldest is 4. His affair partner is someone pretty well known. She made a name for herself for pushing Christian family values. She's been on local radio spewing hate for a lot of different people. I know someone who was her student before and she was a real asshole to them all. Always judging them for being in a private Christian school and not being Christian enough. She left her job for a while and I guess that's when she had the 2 kids. She started at a new school a couple of years ago, another Christian private school. When mom and I found out who she was, we were very much in the WTF category. My father wanted me to give her a chance and to not hold the affair against him and get to know his family. But since I'm 17 he couldn't force me and I told him I wanted nothing to do with him, her, or their kids. It bothered me so much that I ended up looking up the school she worked for and I saw that they had a code of ethics for their teachers and she violated it in 2 ways. 1 with the affair and 2 with having kids before marriage. So I anonymously contacted the school and shared that info with them and she ended up being fired. They didn't figure out I was the one who did it until last month when her appeal ended and she saw some of the evidence they had against her. Of course they were angry and accused me of being awful and spiteful and think of the kids blah blah blah. I really don't care what they think and I love seeing that arrogant asshole knocked off her high horse. I don't feel bad, and even if they ended up homeless and in a shelter because of it, that's not my problem. But my aunt, who I was always super close to, sided with them on that. She said what I did was incredibly spiteful and it would have hurt the kids more than anyone if the consequences were homelessness or whatever. She told me I don't have to want anything to do with any of them but shouldn't have gone so far. Aita. Stories number 24. Aita for refusing to play happy family with my former bully, who is now my dad's fiancée. I, 24F, had a rough time in middle and high school because of a girl named Sophie, 28F. She wasn't just casually mean, she made my life miserable for years. She spread rumors about me, made fun of my appearance, and turned people against me. I developed severe anxiety, and it took years of therapy to rebuild my confidence. Fast forward to last year, my dad, 51M, told me he was dating someone serious and wanted me to meet her. I showed up to dinner, and my stomach dropped. It was Sophie. At first, I thought she didn't recognize me, but then she smiled awkwardly and said, "Wow, long time no see." Later that night, my dad asked why I was so quiet. When I told him what Sophie did to me growing up, he was shocked. He said she never mentioned knowing me. When he brought it up to her, she texted me a short, "Hey, I'm sorry if I was ever mean to you. I was young and stupid." That was it. I told my dad I wanted nothing to do with her. He said people change and that I should give her a chance. I refused, so he stopped bringing her around when I visited. That was fine, until last month, when he announced they were engaged. Now, he's pushing me to come to the wedding, saying I need to move on and not hold a grudge over childhood drama. Sophie hasn't tried to have a real conversation with me. She acts like nothing ever happened, which makes it so much worse. My dad thinks I should be able to let go, since it was years ago, but to me, being bullied isn't just something you get over because enough time has passed. Some of my family agrees with me, but others say I'm being petty and should at least try to be civil for my dad's sake. So, Aita for refusing to accept her as family. Stories number 25. My wife's sister is cheating on her husband. So there is a lot to unpack here and I'll try to not get into too much detail. I recently found out that my wife's sister is cheating on her husband with another man, first in secret, but the husband found out and had worked out that they wanted to stay together because they got a little kid, 1 year old, together. But she was still speaking to the guy she was sleeping with. He was also cheating on his girlfriend with her. Because they were still chatting, they meet up again and is cheating again with the knowledge that her husband knows and feels powerless to do anything about it. She doesn't want a divorce because he is well off with a good income and comfortable living space. She also said she doesn't love her husband anymore. And the rest of the family doesn't really know what is going on. How can we the family help in this situation? Stories number 26. Wibta if I move out of our apartment knowing my fiancé and his mom can't afford it without me, F29, and my ex fiancé, M27, have been living together for about 1.5 years. Fiancé got his undergraduate degree, worked for a couple years and then decided to get an MBA, which is how he ended up in our city. We moved in together after he finished his MBA program. Fiancé is from the Midwest and his mom has always wanted him to move back. When he told her he was staying here, she was heartbroken. I went to college and got my degree in a STEM field. After I graduated, I got a job with my current company and moved to the city where we currently live. It's a big international company with multiple locations in the US and international. I love my job, I like the company I work for, and the pay is pretty good. All in all, a pretty good deal. During COVID my office shut down and we all went WFH. After COVID they decided not to reopen this office, so I've been 100% WFH since early 2020. I currently make considerably more than him, mainly because I've been working for 7 years and I'm in tech. I had been living by myself in a 1-bedroom apartment and just had my office set up in the living room since it was just me. When we moved in together, we decided to get a 2-bedroom apartment so I could use the extra room as an office. Because of this I was paying 2/3 of the rent and he paid 1/3. We split everything else 50/50. So the problem started this past May. Fiancé's mom told him she wanted to move to our city to be closer to him. She asked if she could stay with us while she looked for a job and got settled. She's a teacher, so figured she'd be able to get a teaching job pretty quickly. Because of that I didn't really mind her staying with us, as I figured it would just be for a couple months over the summer. Since I thought it would only be for a couple months, I moved my office into a corner of our bedroom and fiancé bought a bed to put in the second bedroom. The problem is she never applied for any teaching positions and has been living with us for 6 months now. She and I have really been struggling with each other since she moved in. I can't make her understand that I work full-time. She constantly interrupts while I'm working, which is bad enough, but she even interrupts when I'm on Teams calls. She always asks me to take her places BC she doesn't like to drive in our city. She has pretty outdated views of gender roles and is constantly giving me a hard time for not doing more around the house and making fiancé help with chores, do his own laundry, etc. The constant criticism and insults are just really wearing me down. And I hate having my office shoved in a corner of the bedroom. Back in September I told my fiancé that since it looks like his mom is going to stay a while we should split the rent 3 ways. He told me she can't afford that since she has to conserve money until she gets a job. I told him I wasn't happy paying extra for a bedroom I can't use, so finally he said we could do a 50-50th split. I could afford to pay the extra, but I hate the idea of funding her lifestyle. Every time I complain about her or the situation he says he agrees but doesn't know what to do because he can't kick out his mom. And he won't talk to her about the way she treats me or how she behaves. When I ask what the long-term plan is, he just says he doesn't know. I've thought about giving him an ultimatum to tell her she has to leave, but I think he'd just end up resenting me for essentially putting his mom on the street. So one of my girlfriends is losing her roommate the end of February. Our lease renews June 1st. I'm very strongly considering moving out of our current apartment and moving in with her. I can afford to pay my part of rent on our current apartment and also half the rent at my friend's apartment. It's not ideal, but I'm not a big spender, so it's doable. The issue is, if he and his mom aren't able to pay for 1/3 the rent each, there is no way they could cover the whole thing on their own. But I can't live like this anymore, so I'm pretty sure this is what I'll do, but I wanted to see if people thought I'd be the AH for leaving them like this. Update, Wibta, if I move out of our apartment knowing my fiancé and his mom can't afford it without me, I moved out. Hey everyone. I've been getting a lot of requests for updates, so I wanted to let everyone know how it went when X's mom found out about me not covering all the rent and moving out. TLDR, it was kind of a shit show. But I'm moved out and I'm off the lease. FMIL is on the lease now and she and X's dad are covering half the rent and STBX is covering the other half. Last week I started working out of my friend's apartment, the one I'm moving in with, so I didn't see X's mom on Monday. Tuesday around lunch she sent me text asking where I was. I told her I was working and I'd be home late tonight. She replied that X told her I wasn't going to be contributing as much, so she had to loan him money for rent. That wasn't a surprise to me, so I just replied with a thumbs up emoji. I had plans with my friend and her roommate, who I'm also friends with, to go out for dinner and then get some drinks. So by the time I got home it was after midnight and X's mom was already asleep. The fun started Wednesday morning. I was getting ready to go to work at my friend's place when X's mom stopped me and said we need to discuss my financial situation. Then she went on a whole tirade about her having to cover my part of the rent, me making foolish choices by going out to dinner when I couldn't even pay rent, I was irresponsible with money and inconsiderate of the impact it had on others, blah, blah, blah. She went on to say that if she was going to have to pay my share of the rent that she expected me to do a better job of keeping on top of chores and keeping the apartment clean and organized. I told her I was moving out since obviously STBX hadn't told her yet. She seemed, I don't know, pleased with herself. All she had to say was, maybe that's for the best. When I got home that night, right off the bat, she wanted to talk. She said instead of me moving out, we could get a bigger apartment and she'd be willing to help by paying the difference between a 2BR and a 3BR. Then we could go back to the arrangement X and I had before she moved in, me paying 2/3 of the balance and him paying 1/3. Honestly, when she was saying this I think my brain vapor locked. She was making it sound like she was doing us a favor by offering to pay the increase in rent. Apparently this man-child who tells his mom literally every single thing about our lives and relationship hadn't bothered to tell his mom how much I was actually contributing. It seems like once she discovered X wasn't paying for everything like she thought, she wasn't as excited about me moving out. I tried to be polite and told her I'd already given notice to our apartment complex that I was moving out at the end of the month and already committed to move in with my friend. She kept pushing the issue and said if she was willing to pay the difference, I should just stay, because that would really be best for everyone. By then I was getting annoyed and told her that because of the way she has been acting and treating me I had no interest in living with her anymore. That's when the best line of this whole dumpster fire came out of her mouth. She said she was worried I was taking advantage of her son, and if we had told her about our financial arrangement she would have been more understanding of why I wasn't keeping up with the apartment. I told her maybe a good lesson from this is to try being nice to everyone in the future and not just the people you think can help you. And I asked her why she didn't help out more since she wasn't doing anything productive all day. She did not like either of those comments and it got pretty hostile with both of us yelling at each other. And to be fair, we both said some pretty awful things to one another. Finally I told her I was going to inform the rental office that she had been living there contrary to the lease agreement because getting evicted would be worth it to see her living on the street. I grabbed my laptop and went to my friend's. I didn't even bother packing an overnight bag. Next afternoon, Thursday, X texted me and said he had added his mom to the lease effective the first of the month and that she and his dad, I have no idea how that poor man got roped into this, would pay half the rent and X would pay the other half. I confirmed with the property manager that I was off the lease and didn't have any further obligation. I got it in email so I have a record. I put disconnect orders in for the utilities under my name and told him to call and set up accounts under his name. I'm going to lose the damage deposit, it goes to whoever is living there when lease ends, but it's a small price to pay to be free. On the way home I stopped and got a bunch of boxes to pack my stuff up. She was pretty hostile when I got home, and when she saw how much I was taking she got worse. I ended up taking Friday off to finish packing, and on Saturday got some friends to help move stuff to my new place. I'm going to pay my friends some rent for the next 2 weeks until the one move out. They didn't want me to, but I'm not going to stay in someone's home and not contribute. If nothing else, living with X and his mom taught me that. Last night X and I got together and talked for the first time since Saturday. He said his mom is staying until June when the lease is up, then she's moving back to their hometown. According to him, she just really didn't like living here and that's why she didn't try to find a job. Then he asked how long a break I thought we should take. A few commenters gave me a hard time for stringing him along, so I was brutally honest and told him I could not be with someone that allowed others to treat me the way he allowed his mom to treat me, and that I hoped he learned to stand on his own and establish some boundaries. He looked like he was going to cry and just got up and left. As far as I'm concerned, this is over and done. I'm going to call it a learning experience and be glad I found out how awful X's mom is before we got married. The thing that amazes me is the amount of damage this woman leaves in her wake and how utterly oblivious she is. She destroyed our engagement and relationship, is leaving X in a much worse financial situation, pushed back her ex-husband's retirement by I don't know how many years, since now he likely has to pay off of the mortgage, or second mortgage, he had to get to pay her half of the equity. And she made my life hell for 6+ months, and she's walking away completely unscathed. According to my ex, she's going back to her hometown and picking up her old teaching job. I'm thinking about going to visit my parents next week and working from their house. I want to tell them how boring and undramatic they are and how I'm so grateful for that and love them for it, lol. Stories number 27. I got my neighbor's cat addicted to treats, and now he's ruining my life. Alright, M24, this is probably the dumbest thing I've ever done, but it spiraled so far out of control that I have to confess. A few months ago, my neighbor's cat, Mr. Pickles, started hanging around my porch. I love animals, and he seemed friendly, so I gave him a few treats. Big mistake. This cat is now obsessed with me. At first, it was cute, he'd meow at my door, I'd give him a couple of treats, and he'd wander off. But then he started showing up every day, demanding more. If I ignored him, he'd sit outside my window and scream. And I mean scream. It sounds like a toddler being sacrificed. I tried to cut him off, but this little menace is relentless. He's learned my schedule. He waits for me when I get home. If I take too long, he'll start knocking things over on my porch, my plants, my shoes, even my mailbox. My neighbor has no idea I caused this, and he keeps complaining that Mr. Pickles has been getting weird lately. The worst part? He started breaking into my house. I left a window cracked last week, and I woke up to him standing on my chest, staring at me. I panicked and gave him treats just to make him leave. I rewarded the behavior. I have created a monster. I don't know how to fix this. Do I confess to my neighbor? Do I go cold turkey and risk my house being destroyed? I've made an enemy out of a cat, and I'm pretty sure he's winning. Please help. Stories number 28. To fool by not thinking of the most basic reason for my symptoms. Okay, this didn't happen today. It takes place over the last few months, but I'm finally ready to talk about it. For most of 2024, I, 30F, started experiencing increasingly worse symptoms of fatigue, loss of appetite, headaches, and other similar symptoms. After a good amount of time, I got blood work done and was diagnosed with mild anemia. I was prescribed iron pills, but after taking them for a couple months I was still experiencing trouble. I could barely get out of bed and was really only eating 1 or 2 meals a day. I started losing weight and I just couldn't function day to day. I go back to my general practitioner, and to her credit she listened to me spiral about what it could be. Did I have cancer or a rare blood disease? I do have history of OCD, so it's not surprising for me to hyperfixate on things related to my health. My doctor also knows I'm prone to doing this, so she tried being reassuring, saying nothing showed up on my lymph nodes ultrasound that was concerning and there were no other indications of cancer or serious illness. It was when she said, "It's usual, too, for females who menstruate to have iron deficiency," that I almost snapped. I was so tired after months of dealing with these symptoms, I felt disregarded and in danger of something serious, and now I was losing patience with my doctor. I told her this shouldn't be the normal and I wasn't even having regular periods, from what I thought were my anemia symptoms. I pushed to see a hematologist for a second opinion. My doctor reluctantly agreed, and after a few more weeks, I was able to secure an appointment. The week of my appointment with the hematologist, a friend mentioned she was getting her period and it made me think, I haven't had a period in a little while. Again, sometimes I tend to catch myself spiraling, so I tried to reassure myself I couldn't possibly be pregnant, and when I got home from work I'd take a test to ease my mind. I get home. I trot to the bathroom. And I take a test. There's a faint line. I think, no, can't be. And I take 5 more tests. A few minutes later, my husband sees me stumbling out of the bathroom with utter shock written across my face while I try to hold 6 pea sticks that all say I'm pregnant. Turns out, for the last few months I had been pregnant, which explains why my symptoms got increasingly worse a couple months prior while my hemoglobin/anemia had actually been improving. Unfortunately, the pregnancy didn't last. A few days later, I ended up having a miscarriage, which as some might guess sent me back into iron deficiency anemia from the blood loss. I never thought I'd be someone who was pregnant without knowing, since I'm usually very cautious. But, this is just another cautionary tale to rule out the usual suspects before you Google cancer symptoms. The good news is that I'm back on an upward trend, and I use an app now to track my period. Edit, a couple comments asked why the doctor didn't check for pregnancy, and so I did some searching on my record. Like I said, it's been some time since this happened. Turns out they did, but they did so a few months prior to me going in with worse symptoms, when I was originally diagnosed with the anemia. I guess they thought they ruled that out and I just happened to get pregnant immediately afterwards. Still not really a good excuse, and they probably should have rerun the test. TLDR, I ignored the most basic symptoms of being pregnant and thought I was dying. Stories number 29. 36F with 31M and I am struggling with fulfilling him sexually even with sex daily. How do I actually fulfill him without resenting him? I'm 36F with 31M and I am struggling with fulfilling him sexually. We've been together for years, we have sex almost every day, sometimes twice a day, and he is still not satisfied. Over this last month we only went 3 days in total when we weren't intimate. It seems like he continues to want more from me where I think I'm really trying for him. When I ask specifically what more he wants, it's that he wants me to blow him spontaneously through the day as well as the sex every day. He also wants me to desire it like crazy, like can't keep my hands off him type of thing. How the hell do I fulfill his sexual needs without fully resenting him at this point? We have multiple kids and multiple jobs. He says I should just want it more and have this high level of lust to him, but we are already engaging more time than what is my level of intimacy needs. We talk about this constantly and I just don't know how more to satisfy him without becoming resentful of him. How do I fulfill his needs while not losing my love for him? Stories number 30. Aita's stepdad kicked me out the house after an argument. Now I don't talk to him ever. When I was 18, 34 now, I got into a really bad argument with my stepdad. He kicked me out and stated I couldn't come back inside the house until I apologize. 3 days later I came home, knocked on the door and said, I'm sorry. He says, that not a good apology, and shut the door in my face. 2 to 3 weeks later I sign up for the military cause I'm homeless and surfing couches. 16 years of moving, working and deploying go by and we maybe see each other 3 times but never talk about the past. I have my own kid now so I've moved on, but he tries to send me and my kid birthday and Christmas money. When I was in the military I would send him a pizza for Father's Day and his birthday once in a while. Now that I'm out of the military I feel bad because I could care less how he's doing. This last Christmas he sent money and even wrote the wrong name on my kid's envelope. This relationship feels dead, but I feel bad because he was nice at one point in time. Bought me my first N64 and PS1. I feel like I'm being immature, but I never wanted to leave my family in America to fight. I missed all my sisters' and mom's birthdays, weddings, and their kids' births for 16 years and I blame him, Aita, for not moving on and forgiving him. He's never apologized, but he seems to want a relationship. Aita. Stories number 31. My parents picked us from the kid store. I want to return my brother. My parents told me I came from the kid store. It's a magical place, Mommy said, smoothing my hair, where parents pick the perfect child. I liked that idea. It made me feel special. Like a prize they had chosen from all the other kids waiting on the shelves. Then they brought home Sam. I didn't understand why they picked him. He cried too much, all red-faced and wrinkly. He couldn't play. Couldn't talk. Couldn't do anything but steal Mommy and Daddy's attention. Can we take him back? I asked. Mommy laughed. Oh, sweetheart. You can't return babies. Once you pick one, they're yours forever. A few days later, Mommy gave me a present. Inside the box was Rosie, a doll with golden curls and a pink dress. Just for you, she said. To show you how much we love you. I lifted the lid, excited, but my smile faded. One of Rosie's legs had already come off. She's broken. I cried, holding up the limp leg. Don't worry, Daddy said, taking the doll. We'll take her back and get a new one. I watched as he packed Rosie into a bag and drove away. When he came back, she was fixed. Good as new, Mommy said. The next day, I waited until Mommy and Daddy were in the kitchen. Sam lay in his crib, gurgling, his tiny hands reaching for nothing. I reached in and grabbed his leg. I pulled, expecting it to come right off. It didn't. I twisted harder, a snap. Sam screamed. I grabbed his other leg, snap. His arms, snap. I pressed my hands against his cheeks and twisted his head, snap. Sam went floppy. Quiet now. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Mommy and Daddy froze in the doorway. I held Sam up by his limp leg and smiled. He's broken, I said. Can we take him back to the kids' store now? They didn't speak. Instead, Daddy wrapped Sam's body in a blanket. Mommy took my hand. Come on, sweetheart, she said. We're going on a little trip. The kids' store was just like any other, except for the cages. Signs boasted sales and limited-time discounts. Babies lay bundled in blankets, while older children sat behind bars, their eyes tracking passing shoppers. A few cages stood empty, price tags still dangling from the doors. The manager greeted us. Back again. Daddy handed Sam over. The man unwrapped him, frowning at the twisted limbs. Shame, he muttered. Wait here. We'll get your replacement. A worker rolled out a metal cart. Inside was a baby just like Sam. They handed him to Daddy, swaddled in blue. Good as new, Mommy whispered. I reached for her hand. She didn't take it. The man turned to her. And what about this one? He asked, nodding at me. She's broken. The man's smile widened. Well, he said, leading me toward an empty cage, we'll get you a new one, then. No, she said, adjusting her purse. We want a refund. Stories number 32. Aita for saying the parents are to blame for near drowning. At my 50th birthday party my little cousin nearly drowned and ended up disabled with a traumatic brain injury. The boy cannot walk, talk, eat or move his limbs, just moving his arms a little, and he cannot see. A friend of mine has been interested in his progress, so I sent her the GoFundMe link and she donated. She signed up for their Caring Bridge updates, and every time there is a post on Facebook I send it to her to keep her informed. She also asks about him whenever I see her. Recently I went out to brunch with my cousin who is the boy's grandmother. She was saying how this could have happened to anyone and no one is to blame. I asked if that meant she thought someone was minding the child at the time of the drowning, because it was pretty obvious no one was watching the kid when he got caught up in the water. They don't even know how long he was in the water, which is what the paramedics were told when they arrived. She basically said she didn't want to place blame on anyone for this unfortunate accident. I later told my friend about my conversation with my cousin and we were texting about it. Last night she sent me a bunch of messages about how offended she was that I was trying to place blame on the parents for this. I told her that I was there when it happened, and I also had to give a statement to police detectives, so unfortunately what happened is true, no one was watching the kid and he nearly drowned because of it. I also told her I wasn't willing to rewrite history just to make the mom feel better about herself. Now my friend is not talking to me, has cancelled our plans to hang out and doesn't want to be my friend anymore because she's a mom and is horrified I would say something like that. So I'm wondering now if I'm the for saying no one was watching the kid and it's the parents' fault this happened. Stories number 33. Aita for writing so bad my teacher couldn't read it because he didn't let me use my support. I, 14F, live in the UK and therefore have to do my GCSEs next year. In preparation for these tests, we must do mini tests with our chosen subjects before. I also happen to have severe dyspraxia. I can talk and look normal, but only as a result of years of OT. I can't run properly or move quickly, and the one thing I can't do is write. My old school didn't teach students to write normally and we were scolded if our handwriting wasn't in cursive / joined up, so I never learned to write like the other kids quickly. All my writing is in cursive and I only learned to write with a fountain pen. The school also didn't allow us to carry non-fountain pens. I manage just fine as I have had a laptop concession and word processor for any writing task that takes longer than 30 minutes and recently taken it up full time as my condition worsened with puberty. Hey, race where my story starts. My teacher, M, we'll call him Mr. S, gave out the test papers for a history test, a test that requires 8 essay-style questions. So naturally I pulled out my device, that I don't normally use in history because there's not a lot of writing, it's mostly sheets and bullet points, but Mr. S stopped me. He said he didn't see my name on the list of students allowed, even though I am definitely on the list as the only student there with a concession and extra time, and demanded I put my device away or he'd give me a detention. Begrudgingly, I put it away and decided if he wanted to play, then I'd shoot too. I'm rather petty and this was one of those instances, but I feel it was justified. I opened my paper and while writing my answer, I didn't exert myself. This was an hour-long assessment and I knew I'd burn out if I did my bestest girlie's neatest calligraphy, so I didn't. I just wrote loosely and didn't clench my hand to the point of cramping. By the final question, I was exhausted and practically scrawling away, so I handed in my sheet and went directly to the head of counseling and welfare. I told her everything and she went to give Mr. S a slap on the wrist and reload my name on the God-protected list. Soon after, Mr. S reported me to a teacher I'm under for being disrespectful after my writing was unacceptable and basically accused me of attention-seeking. I have CC, Ed, in the welfare department who have my records in the email he sent me and made sure to keep up my teacher's pet act I've been building my reputation around for the past 4 years, in front of teachers anyway, and now I'm having the office tell me it was unfair on Mr. S who didn't know the severity of my condition and I should have just talked to him. I tried. However, my friends are backing me up. It's been weighing on my mind, so tell me Reddit. Am I the asshole? TLDR. My teacher didn't believe I had a real problem and forced me to handwrite a test. I reported him and scrawled my essay. Stories number 34. I got rejected today by my best friend who I've had a crush on for years and I don't know what to do. Using a throwaway because I'm so embarrassed right now. I, F18, am currently in my senior year of high school, and I've never had a boyfriend, mainly due to my severe social anxiety which makes it damn near impossible for me to talk to anyone without turning into a blushing, stuttering mess, and I guess guys don't like that, who would have thought? I hardly have any friends either because of the same reason. The only really good friend that I have is this boy I've known since like 6th grade. We've been friends for so long and he's genuinely one of the only people I feel comfortable with and I feel like I can actually be myself around him without fear of being judged. I found out pretty quick after becoming friends that I had a huge crush on him, but of course never had the courage to tell him. I kept my feelings for him bottled up for so long it started to get unbearable. To make it worse, my parents constantly say things like, "You're so pretty, why have you never had a boyfriend?" But the thing is I don't just want a boyfriend, I want him and no one else. But I've always been too nervous to tell him how I feel. So yesterday I decided enough was enough, I was gonna finally tell him how I feel. Obviously I was nervous as hell, but part of me believed that he liked me back. Like I said, we had been friends for so long, and sometimes he'd even let me lean my head on his shoulder or hold his hand or things like that, so I started to think he might seriously like me back. Well, I was wrong. I walked up to him yesterday to tell him that I liked him, obviously sweating and stuttering and looking like a fool, and not only did he say no, but he laughed at me. I felt like such an idiot. I literally ran away in tears and haven't spoken to him since yesterday. I feel so hurt and betrayed and don't know what to do. I don't know how we can even continue being friends after this. I just feel so humiliated, like I want to crawl into a hole and die. It's bad enough that he rejected me, but he's literally my only close friend and I'm scared that this ruined our friendship. If anyone has advice on how I should handle this situation, it would be extremely appreciated. Sorry for the rambling nature of this post, but I just really needed to vent right now. Important edit, so I just talked to him. And to put things simply, we're done. He doesn't want to be friends anymore, doesn't want to apologize for laughing and humiliating me. Instead he decided to double down and said some really mean stuff to me, calling me an ethnic slur. I guess he really was just a douche this whole time. Time to meet new people, I guess. Stories number 35. Set to marry in 8 days and I'm having doubts. Help. I'm set to marry the love of my life, but family dynamics are threatening to ruin everything. What do I do? I'm an American woman, no Indian parentage, engaged to a Desi man born and raised in India. I've known since the word go that our relationship has big odds to overcome. Many people warned me early on about Indian men and their parents, and I see on Reddit it's a huge cause of divorce even with Indian women. And that's my problem. He's younger than me and never married. I'm previously divorced with 3 children from my first marriage. When he told his family about me, they were not happy. I'm not sure which bothers them the most, but I believe it is the age difference. I realize it could be many other things as well. Since the parents voiced their disapproval, he has kept the relationship completely under wraps. This has been a point of contention since June. Like any couple, we have arguments, but this is the only one that we haven't been able to talk through. I wasn't surprised they didn't approve of me because I'm not many of the things Indian brides are taught to be. Quiet, demure, obedient, and definitely not pure. His family is very old-fashioned. But I didn't expect that I would be kept off to the side in his life this whole time. Now we are getting married in 8 days, and there's no end in sight of this problem, and he's basically made it clear it's not going to change. And I've told him many times that it's not acceptable to me to be treated as a dirty secret he has to hide. He won't talk to me when he's at his parents'. He won't let me visit him in his town. I've met one cousin, but that's all. I feel like he keeps me in a box away from all other parts of his life. I've told him before it would be best to at least tell his parents he's getting married and act normal. Behave no different than if I were an Indian woman they did approve of. But he says if he told them he was getting married now, it would be as jarring to the family as though someone had died. Crying face, that doesn't make me feel good to be likened to that. My family has mixed opinions, but I've never hidden the relationship. And I know I'm assigning my American values here, but I feel he chose me, so I should be willing to stand up for me even to his parents. Let them decide how to feel about it. My question is, am I fooling myself to think this can be worked through? If I cancel the wedding we get no refund of expenses. They've offered to let me reschedule once, but I have to decide by tomorrow. I love him so much, and I believe he loves me too. I don't want to end a good thing over this. But I can't accept this. Update, I appreciate all the feedback. Even the harsh comments. But it's good to know it's not just me and American values at play. He often says, this is India, like I should just accept and move on. I have taken my feelings and feedback here and decided to postpone and see how things go. If there is no improvement, then I will cut my losses. I really hope he's just scared and not a scammer. I realize either are possible. I love him so deeply. Stories number 36. Aita for exposing an influencer to her family after she demanded a free painting and $200 on top of that, threatening to tell her followers not to buy from me if I refused. My mom's goddaughter, let's call her Jen, 29F, asked me, 25F, to do a painting for her because she saw I did one for a mutual friend, let's call her Anna. Jen wanted the painting as a gift for her father, who is a retired photographer. Here's the thing, Anna paid me for the painting, and everything went smoothly. She posted a picture of the painting with her mom as she was gifting it to her. Well, Jen saw that painting and became interested in one for her father. The problem is, she wanted me to do it for free. She said she would advertise it on her Instagram and tell her fans to buy from me in exchange for the painting. I told her no, as I am not in a great financial spot right now, and I cannot afford to do something for free. She wanted a custom-sized canvas, which is not commonly found in stores. I would either have to have it made myself or try to find it online for a reasonable price. I explained this to her, but she still didn't understand. She said I already had the materials on hand and that she didn't think art materials were that expensive. She accused me of being greedy and not having a vision for business, claiming that her exposure would be more valuable than my art. She also said she wanted me to pay her $200 on top of the free painting, arguing that with her help, I would make so much money, and companies pay her to review things. She pointed out that every creative artist or individual, including her father, did free work at the beginning. Everything went downhill when she noticed I wasn't replying, I was working, and she started talking down on me because I was let go from the military, for medical reasons beyond my control. She said I had failed at everything, including that, and that she was giving me the option to succeed and make my parents proud. Since I wasn't replying, she called my mom to complain that I didn't want to do a free painting for her. As I mentioned, she's my mom's goddaughter, and my mom seems to have a preference for her. Mom called me back and demanded I do the painting for free. I became enraged. Jen's words about my parents not being proud of me stuck in my head. So, I decided to draw a 2-second sketch and told her that was her free painting and to leave me alone. She became really angry and threatened to post on her socials, telling her followers not to buy from me and to ruin my art career. I've received a few phone calls from my mom, which I haven't answered, and some hate messages from what I assume are her followers. Aita for exposing her texts to her family. Stories number 37. I am so fucking sick of people surrendering animals to shelters. I work at a shelter and the amount of people who want to dump their animals is insane. We get puppies adopted and brought back the next day. For barking all night in the kennel, not being potty trained, etc. The amount of elderly people who want a puppy or a super high energy breed is also insane. You're 78 and you can't fucking walk without a walker. Why do you think a puppy is a good idea? The shelter I work at has a wait list, an entire binder, full of people who want to surrender, aka dump, their dogs into us because they didn't think their adoption through. Not to mention the people who don't contact us and just dump a dog at our door when we aren't open. We had a dog get euthanized last week because she caught a sickness and it's not really curable. They brought her back a month after they adopted her because of scheduling issues. If you want to adopt an animal, educate yourself, otherwise stick to a fucking houseplant. Stories number 38. Aita for refusing to babysit my step-siblings after my dad said I should step up as the oldest. Okay, so I, 16F, live with my dad, 45M, and my stepmom, 39F. They got married 2 years ago, and she has 2 kids, 5M and 3F. I have never really had an issue with them, but I never signed up to be their babysitter. So recently my dad and stepmom have been asking me to watch the kids more and more. At first it was just, can you keep an eye on them while we run to the store, but now it's turning into full evenings even on weekends when I have plans. I've told them multiple times that I don't want to be a built-in babysitter, but they always guilt me with, you're the oldest, you should help out, or, family helps family. The breaking point was last Friday. I had plans to go to my best friend's birthday party. I told my dad about it a week in advance, and he said it was fine. Then, the night before, he told me that I had to cancel because they were going to dinner and needed me to watch the kids. I said no and reminded him I already had plans. He got annoyed and said I was being selfish. I told him that if they needed a babysitter, they should hire one because I'm not free childcare. He got really mad and said that I was being disrespectful and that, as the oldest, I need to step up. I still refused, and in the end, he had to call off their dinner because they couldn't find a last-minute babysitter. Now both he and my stepmom are mad at me, and my dad is giving me the silent treatment. I feel kind of bad because I know parenting is stressful, but at the same time, I never agreed to be responsible for my step-siblings and I want to be able to live my life. So. Aita. Stories number 39. Aita for telling my 3-year-old son, would you like it if Papa hit you like that, after he hit me? My 3-year-old son was sick, and we had a rough, sleepless night. In the morning, I was cuddling him on the sofa, and he started playing with my watch. Suddenly, he hit it really hard, which hurt my hand. Reflexively, I got up and said, ouch, that really hurt. My son got upset, covered his face, and said, stop, as if I was the one doing something wrong. He then ran to my wife for comfort. I followed and said, why should Papa stop? You were the one that hit Papa. Would you like it if Papa hit you like that? My wife immediately stopped me and said, don't say that, you're his safe place. I understood her concern and reworded it to, you wouldn't like it if someone hit you like that, no? He said no and apologized. Later, I tried helping him understand his emotions. Later, my son was giving me dirty looks while sitting in my wife's lap. I commented that I didn't understand why, and my wife said I needed to look at my behavior and be his safe space. That upset me because it felt like she was dismissing my feelings. We were both exhausted from the night and I didn't feel like arguing, so I said, that's enough, I'm leaving. I was heading to work anyway. Then, my wife followed me and threatened divorce if I ever threatened our son with violence again. I was shocked and upset because I never intended to be violent, I was just trying to teach him not to hit others. Now I feel like my wife sees me as some kind of threat to our son, which really hurts. Aita. TLDR, my sick, exhausted 3-year-old son hit my watch so hard it hurt. I instinctively said, ouch, that really hurt. When he got upset and ran to my wife, I asked, would you like it if Papa hit you like that, to teach empathy? My wife got angry, saying I should be his safe space. Later, she escalated the argument and threatened divorce, saying I threatened him with violence. I never intended harm, just wanted to teach him not to hit. Now I feel hurt and confused. Aita. Stories number 40. Am I wrong for feeling this way about what happened to my wife? I need to get something off my chest because it's been bothering me a lot. My wife is naturally big-busted, and because of that, I've always suggested she dress modestly, not because I want to control her, but because I know how people can be. She usually understands where I'm coming from, but at a friend's wedding recently, she wore a sari blouse that showed some cleavage. I didn't say much because she looked beautiful, and it was her choice. But what really upset me was what happened later. Her boss was at the same wedding, and in front of others, he made a comment about her cleavage. Instead of shutting him down, she just laughed it off. Others laughed too, and I noticed people staring at her chest throughout the evening. I felt uncomfortable, maybe even a little embarrassed. Not because of her, but because of how openly people reacted. I was angry, but she acted like it wasn't a big deal. When I brought it up later, she told me I was overthinking it and that she just didn't want to make a scene. Now I'm stuck between feeling protective, feeling disrespected, and wondering if I'm just being too sensitive. Am I wrong to feel this way? Should I have said something in the moment? Or am I making a big deal out of nothing? Would appreciate some honest perspectives. Stories number 41. I smashed my niece's phone after losing my dog. My niece, 16, has been living with me and my fiancé for a little under a year now. My fiancé knew her since she was 5 and she didn't have a healthy house environment for years, so I didn't hesitate to bring her in when my fiancé asked if she can stay with us. I've spent a good amount of my own money to get her situated, including the phone and her own room, and furnished it. Since then, we've realized how glued she is to her phone. She stays on TikTok all day and talks to her friends literally all day. It's gotten to the point where the school has emailed us how distracted she is and just been fucking off in school. Tons of missing assignments and grades aren't the best and is slipping. We've reached an agreement to finally take her phone away, but after the weekend we come home from vacation that my fiancé and I were just going, we trusted her to stay home by herself even with the help with my family coming over to check up on her every day. Not even a few hours after we landed to our destination she lost my dog. I was devastated. It completely ruined my vacation and I felt almost depressed. My cousin reminded her multiple times to bring him inside and brushed it off because she was on her phone the whole time she was there to check up on her. I found out that it took almost 3 hours for her to realize my dog was still outside and he was gone. When I finally came home I took her phone and smashed it to pieces. This dog meant a lot to me. I've had him for almost 7 years. I'm actually paralyzed and I got him about 6 months after my accident. He was the first dog I've gotten myself and was a really good dog that everybody loved. He was basically my emotional support dog. The whole house vibe is noticeably down, and my fiancé thinks smashing her phone was overkill. And now we've been arguing and haven't really been talking AIO. TLDR, I've had my dog ever since I gotten paralyzed, so about 7 years now. Couple hours into my vacation, I get a call that my niece forgot to bring in my dog. And now he's missing. Stories number 42. I realized that I don't want to date women with a high body count because of insecurity, but that I am okay with that. I'm a man in my 20s and I don't want to date a woman who has slept with a high number of guys. I would read Reddit threads on this and a lot of comments would say, you're just insecure. The past doesn't matter. Once I started going therapy, I told my therapist about this and realized that I did feel insecure at the thought of being with someone who had been with a bunch of guys. As I would always wonder how I stack up compared to those guys. Over the years, I went to different therapists, for other reasons, but whenever this topic would come up, I'd never be able to get rid of the insecurity I'd have about being with a woman who has a high body count. Eventually, I just accepted that my insecurity will never go away and that I will no longer fight it. And now I see absolutely nothing wrong with my feeling this way. Nothing will ever make it go away and I will make no attempt to fight it. Edit. Not sure why some people are assuming I want a virgin woman. I don't mind if they've been with a few people, like myself, I've been with 4 women. The issue for me is, if it's a high number. Edit 2, people asking me what I consider high, IMO something like 20 plus guys. Stories number 43. AITA for not wanting anything to do with my parents and family. I, 27M, have decided to completely cut ties with my parents and siblings, and now my whole extended family is calling me heartless. I don't think I am, but I need some outside opinions. Growing up, my parents were not great. They weren't physically abusive, but emotionally. Absolutely. They had my older brother, 30M, and younger sister, 25F, and for some reason, I was always the scapegoat. My brother was the golden child, he could do no wrong. My sister was the baby, so she was spoiled. And me, I was the one blamed for everything. If something went missing, it was my fault. If my siblings were in a bad mood, I must have done something. If I ever tried to stand up for myself, I was being disrespectful or too sensitive. I never got the same support they did. When I turned 18, my parents pretty much shoved me out the door. No help with college, no advice about life, nothing. Meanwhile, my brother got his tuition fully paid for, and my sister still lives at home rent-free. The only reason I even made it on my own was because I worked my ass off at a crappy job and eventually built a life for myself. Fast forward to now. I have a stable job, a decent apartment, and honestly, life has been so much better without them. I haven't spoken to them in almost 2 years. Then, out of the blue, my mom reaches out. Not to apologize. Not to check in on me. But to ask for money. Turns out, my dad lost a bunch of money in a bad business deal, and now they're struggling. She hit me with the whole, we're family, and family helps each other, speech. I told her no. I don't owe them anything after the way they treated me. She got angry, said I was being cruel, that I needed to let go of the past and be a good son. Then my brother called, basically saying the same thing, but with more insults thrown in. He told me I was selfish and bitter and that I needed to grow up. My sister texted me, saying she understands why I'm upset, but that I should still help because they're still our parents. I blocked them all. And now my aunts, uncles, and even some cousins are blowing up my phone, telling me I'm an asshole for abandoning my family in their time of need. Some of them even said I was being vindictive and immature. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to help and wanting nothing to do with them. Stories number 44. AITA for refusing to play happy family with my former bully, who is now my dad's fiancé. I, 24F, had a rough time in middle and high school because of a girl named Sophie, 28F. She wasn't just casually mean, she made my life miserable for years. She spread rumors about me, made fun of my appearance, and turned people against me. I developed severe anxiety, and it took years of therapy to rebuild my confidence. Fast forward to last year, my dad, 51M, told me he was dating someone serious and wanted me to meet her. I showed up to dinner, and my stomach dropped. It was Sophie. At first, I thought she didn't recognize me, but then she smiled awkwardly and said, "Wow, long time no see." Later that night, my dad asked why I was so quiet. When I told him what Sophie did to me growing up, he was shocked. He said she never mentioned knowing me. When he brought it up to her, she texted me a short, "Hey, I'm sorry if I was ever mean to you. I was young and stupid." That was it. I told my dad I wanted nothing to do with her. He said people change and that I should give her a chance. I refused, so he stopped bringing her around when I visited. That was fine, until last month, when he announced they were engaged. Now, he's pushing me to come to the wedding, saying I need to move on and not hold a grudge over childhood drama. Sophie hasn't tried to have a real conversation with me. She acts like nothing ever happened, which makes it so much worse. My dad thinks I should be able to let go since it was years ago, but to me, being bullied isn't just something you get over because enough time has passed. Some of my family agrees with me, but others say I'm being petty and should at least try to be civil for my dad's sake. So, AITA for refusing to accept her as family. Stories number 45. AITA for telling my husband I won't cook for his mom anymore. My MIL, 64F, has never liked me, 30F. She's polite when my husband, 35M, is around, but when we're alone, she constantly makes passive-aggressive comments. If I wear makeup, I'm trying too hard. If I don't, I look tired. If I buy something nice for myself, I'm wasting money. But the worst part, she critiques everything I cook. Despite this, I've always cooked for her. She lives alone, so my husband invites her over 3 times a week to make sure she's eating well. I wouldn't mind if she were appreciative, but she never is. No matter what I make, she always finds something wrong. This soup could use more seasoning. After I followed her exact recipe, LOL, the chicken is a little dry. When I made her favorite dish, "You put cheese in this?" That's not how I'd do it. I've bitten my tongue for years to keep the peace, but last week was the final straw. I spent 2 hours making homemade lasagna, including fresh pasta and a special sauce. When she took a bite, she sighed and said, "I guess this is edible." I put my fork down and said, "I'm done. From now on, if you don't like my cooking, you can make your own meals." She looked shocked and then burst into tears. She told my husband I had humiliated her at the dinner table and that she didn't feel welcome in our home anymore. Instead of defending me, my husband immediately took her side. He said I was overreacting and that she's just old-fashioned, she doesn't mean anything by it. I told him that just because she's older doesn't give her a free pass to insult me every time she eats at our house. Now she refuses to eat at our home unless my husband cooks, which he rarely does. Low-key a win. She's also started making passive-aggressive remarks about not wanting to be a burden and how sad it is to eat alone in old age. My husband is furious with me for ruining family dinners and insists that I should just let it go because that's just how she is, but I refuse to spend hours cooking for someone who goes out of her way to shit on me. Aita. Stories number 46. I got rejected today by my best friend who I've had a crush on for years and I don't know what to do. Using a throwaway because I'm so embarrassed right now. I, F18, am currently in my senior year of high school, and I've never had a boyfriend, mainly due to my severe social anxiety, which makes it damn near impossible for me to talk to anyone without turning into a blushing, stuttering mess, and I guess guys don't like that. Who would have thought? I hardly have any friends either because of the same reason. The only really good friend that I have is this boy I've known since like 6th grade. We've been friends for so long and he's genuinely one of the only people I feel comfortable with, and I feel like I can actually be myself around him without fear of being judged. I found out pretty quick after becoming friends that I had a huge crush on him, but of course never had the courage to tell him. I kept my feelings for him bottled up for so long it started to get unbearable. To make it worse, my parents constantly say things like, "You're so pretty, why have you never had a boyfriend?" But the thing is, I don't just want a boyfriend, I want him and no one else. But I've always been too nervous to tell him how I feel. So yesterday I decided enough was enough, I was gonna finally tell him how I feel. Obviously I was nervous as hell, but part of me believed that he liked me back. Like I said, we had been friends for so long, and sometimes he'd even let me lean my head on his shoulder or hold his hand or things like that, so I started to think he might seriously like me back. Well, I was wrong. I walked up to him yesterday to tell him that I liked him, obviously sweating and stuttering and looking like a fool, and not only did he say no, but he laughed at me. I felt like such an idiot. I literally ran away in tears and haven't spoken to him since yesterday. I feel so hurt and betrayed and don't know what to do. I don't know how we can even continue being friends after this. I just feel so humiliated, like I want to crawl into a hole and die. It's bad enough that he rejected me, but he's literally my only close friend and I'm scared that this ruined our friendship. If anyone has advice on how I should handle this situation, it would be extremely appreciated. Sorry for the rambling nature of this post, but I just really needed to vent right now. Important edit, so I just talked to him. And to put things simply, we're done. He doesn't want to be friends anymore, doesn't want to apologize for laughing and humiliating me. Instead he decided to double down and said some really mean stuff to me, calling me an ethnic slur. I guess he really was just a douche this whole time. Time to meet new people, I guess. Stories number 47. I, 34M, have made a huge mistake with my wife, 43F, and I need some advice. I've been doing Spanish classes for the last 6 months. There's a new teacher, 26F. I swear, I have never done any moves or anything, but I confess I'm the kind of sympathetic guy, with jokes and all that stuff. Last Thursday, out of the blue, I received an invitation to a birthday party of this teacher. I didn't have her contact, but we had a class group. I told my wife it was weird the teacher didn't invite me to the group, but anyway, I'd like to go. It would be in an alternative place, kind of a bar, kind of a dancing place. Wife, 42F, said, "Yes, it's strange. Hope it's not an invitation for you and me too." The teacher's message said that was an invitation for you and your partner. She definitely knows I'm married because I've said that a couple of times in the classroom. Okay. We went. Got there, and there was the teacher, her sister, and 2 couples of friends of hers. Everybody sat at the same table, drinking and eating. Only me as her student. When I got there, I thought, F***ck. The teacher said she invited other students, but nobody answered. We didn't spend much time there, and we left after the birthday song. Obviously, my wife is absolutely mad and pissed, saying I sent signals to the teacher, and she invented only me to see if she was right about me hitting on her. First, I didn't agree, but I'm feeling like an idiot. Ruined the Friday night, the Saturday, and the Sunday. I said to my wife, I've never made any moves, but she used to be my teacher, and then we started to date, and now we're married. Need some advice, judgment, and words of wisdom from this wisdom group, and answers for these questions. 1. Would you forgive me in this case? 2. Is there anything I can FO to fix it? Throwaway account. Stories number 48. Aita for not adding my stepmom's extended family to my wedding guest list. I, 26F, will be getting married next year. My fiancé and I are paying for the wedding ourselves with no help from anyone. This includes my dad and stepmom and my maternal side, who are all invited and a big part of my life. With that out of the way, I want to know if I'm wrong here. My dad and stepmom got married when I was 10, which was 2 years after my mom died. It wasn't long after their wedding my stepmom's family got annoyed on my stepmom's behalf that she wasn't treated like a member of my mom's family and for calling her my stepmom instead of my mom. They felt my stepmom deserved more respect from my mom's family, even though my mom's family didn't have an issue with any of them at that point. They just called her what she is, my stepmom. Things got really bad when my dad threw me a sweet 16. He didn't want to invite mom's family because he said it would make my stepmom and her family uncomfortable. I asked who the party was for and said they didn't have to come if they had an issue with my family being there. My stepmom told her family and they put all the blame on my mom's family. And they were acting so offended that I would prefer to have my actual family there versus people who were sort of family but never really felt like my family. There's a really good chance having everyone at the wedding would lead to attempts at fights. But even without that, I really don't have a connection to my stepmom's family. I don't hate them, but I don't see them as my third family either. My stepmom is close to her family though and wants them at the wedding. For me it's less of a headache not to invite them, and it also feels less greedy. Like inviting people I would quickly lose touch with if my dad divorced or died and who I don't care for personally seems so greedy and like a gift grab. I put my foot down and said no to adding them to the guest list, which upset my stepmom. My dad offered to pay 100% of the cost for stepmom's extended family. He told me it means they're sorta his guests instead of mine, but they're still there. I asked him if he'd keep them on a short leash so they don't start fights. I also asked if he'd make it clear they wouldn't be in family photos. He admitted they would need to be included to stop hurt feelings and more trouble, and he said he can't control adults, so I told him my no was still solid. My dad and stepmom think I'm being a bridezilla about this. Am I?